Naruto woke up one morning to find the sage of the six paths offering him a chance to redo his life, claiming it had been too convenient, and so with the request of the gods Naruto is transported back in time to relive his life from the beginning, ready to face new challenges, and meet unexpected comrades. The first thing Orochimaru noticed when he opened his eyes, was that the world wasn't black and white anymore. No, instead it was black and silver, as the darkness around him lent no aid to sight save for the silver hair of his subordinate, Kabuto Yakushi, the very same Kabuto Yakushi that Naruto and Sasuke met in the Chunin exams. Orochimaru's sneer widened. He had been sneering from before he regained control of his past self, and only saw fit to do more so now. The man kneeling before him, while loyal, was an absolute madman. Kabuto was cunning and devious, and Orochimaru was sure that the man would do everything in his power to meddle in his plans, if for no other reason than to prove himself more and more useful through necessity. The man was loyal, but only in so that being loyal was beneficial to him. However devoted Kabuto was, he was simply a pain to deal with and even harder to get rid of. So it was with great glee that Orochimaru dispatched of him immediately a quick swipe of Kusanagi, his famous sword, and Kabuto was beheaded before he could even react. Kabuto's reaction, the attack was to reattach his head. Now what was that for Lord Orochimaru? The man asked, the wet slop sound of his skin and blood colliding filling the void of the empty and rather dark room. Nothing, Orochimaru stammered, clearing, not expecting that the boys had told him that word would quickly become his response to everything, and it had seemed to be for a reason. Kabuto, the slick, inexpressive bastard that he was, seemed to take the explanation without complaint, and rose to his feet. I see. Well then, like I was saying before, a Konoha Jounin had overheard me and the Sand Rat talking about the plan, but he was quickly dispatched. The invasion is going along smoothly and all of our troops are preparing for the attack in a month. I see, Orochimaru hissed. He was uncomfortable with the proceedings, as his want to destroy his old village disappeared ages ago, but he was nothing if not a good actor and a confirmed shifty freak. The Snake Sannin played his part of an overwhelming and frightening lord, and Kabuto nodded, apparently pleased with his demeanor. By your leave, Lord Orochimaru. The Snake Sannin dismissed him, and Kabuto bowed deeply before leaving. As soon as the door closed, Orochimaru shuddered. There was something not right with that boy. XXX. Kakashi looked at Sasuke. The Uchiha glared back. Kakashi moved the boy's collar, only to see that the mark was gone. Sasuke continued to glare. Kakashi coughed. So what happened to the eye? Fell down some stairs, Sasuke replied, obviously not in the mood. I see. Kakashi mumbled. He wasn't sure how to take the obvious lie all parties present could easily tell that it was a lie, including the Uchiha himself, but the boldness of it was so daring that he wasn't sure if he should call his student out on it. At a loss of anything else to do, he said the first thing that came to his mind, training. Sure, Sasuke grunted, and the two disappeared. Well, that was a thing. Naruto's smile, while ever present, was still blinding even if he had nothing to smile about. Yes, Sakura mumbled. She looked back and forth between her teammate and Neji, who decided to stick around for some reason, before nodding and proceeding to walk off. Where are you going? Neji asked. To spy on them, the Kunoichi replied without even turning around. Why? Cause they're both hot. Neither ninja had the proper words to respond to that. Seeing they had nothing else to say, Sakura slinked off, disappearing almost immediately. Neji turned Naruto, and what about Yumi? Naruto asked. Neji rolled his eyes. No, the Kyuubi. Neji responded sarcastically. The Kyuubi answered anyway. I'm going to go burn down the surrounding forests. A puff of chakra later, and a small three-tailed fox took off through the village. Small was a relative term, as it was still the size of a small house. But that was a small detail. The big detail was the horde people screaming as the Kyuubi burned the houses on his way to the forest. Period. Should we be? Neji started. Naruto held up a hand. Give it a minute, he said. After a minute the panicked people suddenly stopped screaming, before going back to what they were doing beforehand. There we go. It should be noted that the houses, while slowly going out, were still burning. Of course I don't know why I bothered. The Hyuga's tone was decidedly dry. He turned back to Naruto. So we're alone? Naruto's eyes snapped to his Hyuga friend. His eyes were wide as he said, this better not be your opportunity to confess. What? No, Neji sputtered. I just wanted to ask you some stuff. Like what? Naruto asked. He sat on the ground as there were people walking in the busy village street. This was an unwise decision. Like how this time travel stuff works. The rules seem to be switching all the time. I don't see what you mean. Well, Neji began, are things supposed to stay the same, or change? They're supposed to stay the same. Naruto tilted his head. Then why are they changing? Naruto tilted his head even more. Because we want them to. Why? Neji practically screamed. These are gods you're playing with. Why are you purposefully trying to make them angry? Naruto shrugged. How are you even doing this? Oh, that's an easy one. Naruto said, the smile on his face replacing the confused one. It turns out, if we annoy them enough, they'll compromise in order to push things along. So the curse mark thing they're compromising, and the Sakura thing. And Naruto tilted his head again. What Sakura thing? Sakura's changing too. Have you not noticed that? Naruto shook his head. Not really, she just seems like herself when she was this age. Or like herself when she was an adult. Kunoichi. Naruto refused to answer. You don't think she's? No, Naruto answered, conviction in his voice. His panicked expression didn't mirror the statement. Are you okay? Niji wasn't sure if he should be afraid, given the scared look on his friend's face. I sure hope we'll be. Wait, Naruto didn't answer. Instead, he stood up and walked off in a random direction in the village. Where are you going, Niji? He asked. A slight panic ran up his spine at Naruto's sudden lack of answers. To go find Pervy Sage. I haven't seen him in forever, and if Sakura really is going to be the next person to return due to our shenanigans, then I need to talk to someone who can relax correctly. Wait, then what am I going to do? Niji reached out to stop boy, but Naruto slipped around his grip. Anything you want. We are supposed to do what we did last time around. But if you haven't noticed, literally none of us actually are. Have some fun. This is a vacation. And like that, Naruto disappeared. Niji looked at the spot where his future Hokage last was, a dazed look on his face. After finally getting over the shock, Niji gathered himself and stalked off. Maybe he should cut loose. XXX. No, Sasuke said, his arms folded, eyes lidded. He glared at his teacher as he tried to teach him his one original technique. Why not? Kakashi asked, the Chidori sparking in his hand. You need your other hand to stabilize it. No, I don't, Sasuke said, though he wouldn't admit it. He was pouting like a child. If he could, he would activate his Sharingan just to put the man in a Jinjutsu that made him believe that they already did. This lesson, he could totally do it, but he wouldn't be able to explain the Sharingan's full maturity, which would mean that time would reset. Then all of the half progress he made would be lost. So Sasuke grit his teeth and persevered. You do, Kakashi drawled. He sounded as if he would fall asleep from boredom. You're new to the technique, so your chakra can't flare and accidentally electrocute you. Stabilize it with your other hand, or we're not going any farther. Sasuke almost scoffed. He held it in as to not offend the man with the legendary assassination technique currently active. You already showed me how to make it. How much more do I need to know of? I don't teach you how to attack with it. In the process of moving your hand, it's entirely possible for you to dislocate your own arm. Kakashi's bored voice sounded completely out of place with the severity of his own words. That doesn't sound too bad, Sasuke responded, his voice not nearly as sure as he intended. He had learned the jutsu so long ago, and had become so proficient with it, that he had completely forgotten about its possible drawbacks. He wasn't so nearly in tune with the technique as Naruto was with his Rasengan. Dear sage, that boy had learned to breathe with that technique, but he was skilled enough with it that turning it on was as simple as a thought for him. So it was with that proficiency that he absolutely refused to use more than one hand for the technique. It would be downright insulting to his skill. True, it was skill he wasn't supposed to have yet, but Uchiha's pride ran deep. Damn it, also, it meant he would have to use his other hand, the one he wasn't supposed to have. So Kakashi's plan was already doomed to fail. Please just try it to start out with once, Kakashi pleaded. Sasuke snorted. No, then I'm not teaching you my technique, Kakashi said, a note of finality to his voice. Sasuke actually chuckled a bit. If Naruto were here, the boy would swear the world was ending. Oh, you mean this technique? Sasuke asked, before holding up his hand and using the base version of the Chidori. It paled in comparison to what he would eventually make. But damn if it wasn't enough to put a shocked look on his teacher's faces. You got it on your first try, Kakashi stammered. He obviously wasn't expecting that. Sasuke nodded, the smile on his face surely signaling some sort of apocalypse. It seems so. How does it feel? Kakashi asked. Sasuke wasn't expecting that question. How was he to answer it? He had been using this technique for so long, it didn't really feel like anything anymore. I don't know, it feels like using a jutsu, Sasuke answered. He hoped it was enough to satisfy his teacher's question. It wasn't. It's supposed to feel like a rush of chakra and energy, Kakashi said. His eyes were now lidded, showing how pensive his teacher suddenly was. The Chidori is mostly unstable, so you should be feeling even a little apprehensive about holding it in your hands. Sasuke didn't know what to say to that, so he just shrugged. It appears that Naruto isn't the only one on your team I should be looking out for. Sasuke didn't like the sound of that. While he wasn't there for a lot of Team 7's formation in this time rewind, he was still holding the same brain. Even if the memories were different, he was getting the memories from before he came back in bits and pieces. And one of the things he remembered was how Kakashi treated Naruto when he was suspicious of the boy. He did not need that kind of scrutiny, any sort of breakthrough. Kakashi, the genius that he was, made towards figuring out the time rewind they were in would immediately cause the universe to reset. And that would mean they would lose all sorts of progress, and that would mean they would be delaying his reunion with his precious daughter. So Sasuke did the only thing he could. He looked for a way to deflect the conversation. While he wasn't as good at sensing chakra as his rival, he could still do it. Expanding his senses, he quickly sensed the presence in the trees, and pointed it out. "Oh, hey look. Sakura is here, do you want to teach her to?" Sasuke asked, pointing directly at where Sakura was hiding amongst the branches. Kakashi turned to her, obviously not checking the surroundings, blinded as he was at figuring out the enigma that his Uchiha student was. "Didn't I tell you not try to spy on us?" Kakashi asked, a hint of steel in his voice. Sakura, to her credit, merely swallowed her fear. Maybe all those interactions with high-class murderers really did do her good. "No you didn't," Sakura nervously answered. Kakashi was prepared to call her out on her lie before he caught himself. Technically, she wasn't lying. "Oh," Kakashi drawled, before pulling out his book. "Well, you really shouldn't." Neither Sasuke nor Sakura knew what to say to that. "Why are you here?" Sasuke asked in lieu of his teacher that seemed just too nonchalant to do the honors. "Well," Sakura started, "I figured, hey, two hot men are going to be training. Might as well watch." Neither Sasuke nor Kakashi knew what to say to that. XXX. "Well, that takes care of that," Naruto said, obviously pleased. He was standing on the red bridge in the village that led over a small stream. The stream was incredibly shallow, and really only useful for water walking training or letting kids play in. It was such a docile stream that parents could reliably allow toddlers to go unsupervised in it without fear of trouble. Throughout the entire history of the Hidden Leaf, there had only ever been one death related to the body of water, and people had written it off as a bogus folktale. Well, now we have another tale to add to your village's lore. The Kyuubi cackled. His glee was made frightening by the fact that he was currently holding Ebisu, the Jonin that was supposed to be teaching Naruto. Under the peaceful stream the man struggled, but those struggles were weakening. "Why do I let you go on these murder sprees?" Naruto asked. The question was as blasé as one about breakfast, combined with the fact that Naruto was simply leaning on the bridge's railing with his chin resting in the palm of one hand made the question almost rhetorical. "That's a good question." Kyuubi said, "I should really stop them." The Kyuubi did not stop suffocating Ebisu. "I fear for my mental health," Naruto said in reply. "Period. You're a terrible influence on me." The Kyuubi barked out a laugh in response. "The day someone can purposefully influence you is the day I bow down to the Nibi and proclaim her my superior. Speaking of that, what is the deal with you and the two tails?" Naruto had started to clean his nails. "Go on about her a lot." The Kyuubi seemed to ponder the answer a bit, though he switched which hand he used to hold Ebisu's head under the admittedly shallow water. "We have a sordid history." Ebisu managed to break above the water while Kyuubi lost focus on him. "What are you doing?" "Enough of that." Ebisu was pushed back underwater. "Sordid history? How?" Naruto asked, uncaring about Ebisu's plight. He wouldn't let Kyuubi actually drown the man. He just didn't want to use the sexy jutsu on him like he did last time. Using it for non-combat reasons felt dirty. "We dated," Kyuubi stated. It was so blunt and quick Naruto almost missed it. Naruto had feeling that the demon probably wouldn't have said anything about it at all, but now that he was asking knew that there was no way around it. Once Naruto wanted to know something, he would get the information out eventually. It was a matter of when, not if. "You do remember that just to be the same being, right?" And Naruto was surprisingly not laughing. So Kyuubi had snapped back. "Regardless, all of your puny existences sprouted from the same being at some point." "Hell, I guess you're right," was all Naruto said, before the two faded back into silence. Silence was pervaded by Ebisu's still struggling flails. "He takes a while to drown," Naruto said. The Kyuubi moaned. "I know this is ridiculous. I'm going to go look for the pervert while you're doing this. Remember, don't eat him." The Kyuubi just moaned again. While Naruto departed, he roamed village, eyes roving over various places and institutions that were lost to the colorful destructions that had come to visit upon his hometown. The eventual Hokage smiled at all the places he would come to frequent, and smiled at their resiliency. Admittedly, he would add, their supposed resiliency in times to come, as no single town should hold so many landscape-changing individuals at once. But that was neither here nor there. These institutions had somehow managed to survive their almost repeated destruction, and for that he was endlessly grateful. Naruto was so caught up in the nostalgia that he almost missed the fact that he was passing Konoha's most famous bathhouse. It was a frequent of the kunoichi in the village who had made it to Genin but not much farther. As such, the beauties there were fit, but still mundane enough to care more about cosmetics than training. The place got lecherous peepers at least once a day, but the kunoichi there, while mediocre ninja, were still ninja. Most peepers didn't last long. Then again, most peepers weren't Jiraiya of the San and Cha doing pervy sage? Naruto asked. He made sure his feet were light and his voice was low as he approached his godfather. Emotion welled up inside him, but he quashed it with the same resolve he used. Quash his feelings for the third Hokage, and his own future wife. What's it look like? Kid Jiraiya snapped back, his voice also low. His hair, a mane of spiky white locks, bristled with his irritation, and had Naruto not known how it could be used as a weapon, he would have wanted to pet it. It looks like you're peeping, Naruto replied. He had stopped right next to the man, and had taken in his outfit. Jiraiya, for as much of a ladies' man as he was, never saw fit to change his clothes ever, not even once. Truth be told, most ninjas in the village refused to change. It was sort of an unspoken rule that everyone was expected to wear the exact same thing every day without change. For Naruto it had been his orange jumpsuit, while for Sakura it was her weird red dress thing. Kakashi wore the standard Jonin flak jacket, while Guy wore what was quite possibly the one thing that people feared on anywhere near a level of his talk no jutsu. Honestly, Naruto believed that even if he were to die in battle, as long as Lee kept his line of clothing and student rearing capability alive, the village would remain safe regardless. There was a reason why there was only ever one green beast of Konoha, and it had nothing to do with willingness. Most genin would kill for the chance to study under the best taijutsu users in the entire world. No, it was socially and internationally forbidden for there to be more than one student of youth at any given time, and the vote was passed unanimously. Naruto had never seen Gaara so vehement about something before. Naruto smiled at the thought of his old friend, but shook his head of the memories. His godfather, in his bright red jacket and toed green shirt and pants, was talking to him, and that is why you should never disturb a man when he is appreciating the female human form, Jiraiya said. A faraway look of what could only be described as extreme perversion plastered over his face. Naruto smiled at the man's antics. Before sitting on the ground next to him, he planted his back against the wall and closed his eyes, breathing in deeply. The atmosphere was just too perfect. Kid, Jiraiya asked, effectively creeped out by the kid he knew to be his godson. He couldn't tell him that yet. Though, what are you doing? Naruto's eyes shot open. He looked at his godfather. Before chuckling softly, he rubbed the back of his neck while a sheepish smile adorned his face. I'm just relaxing. You can continue doing what you're doing. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Well, this was nothing like the loud, self-righteous kid he was told about. Aren't you gonna yell or cause scene about how I'm peeping? Why would I? The blonde asked. Jiraiya found himself at a loss. He never thought that he'd have to answer that question before. Would it change anything? His godson continued. Jiraiya shook his head. Then, if it's not going to change anything, I have no reason to do it. The boy went back to relaxing. He leaned back into the hot spring wall that Jiraiya was currently peeping through via a hole. You never know when you're gonna lose those around you. It's best to just enjoy life while you can. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Okay, I can see the logic in that. But why are you doing it here, of all places? Naruto shrugged. The company is good? Oh, really? Jiraiya snorted. He went back to peeping on the hole. The girls inside were splashing each other and running around with nary a scrap of clothing on. But for once in his life they had seemed uninteresting. He had caught what his godson had said. His words and meanings disjointed just enough to not concretely give anything away, but Jiraiya was a spy master. He could catch on to phrases and hidden meanings well enough, and he had a nagging feeling the boy knew that. He conveyed through conjecture what he couldn't through straight-up words, and the sage couldn't help but to stare at the boy once again. Naruto was in the exact same position he was in when Jiraiya looked at him last. On the surface he seemed calm and collected, but Jiraiya wasn't the kind to look just on the surface. Since he had sat down, Naruto hadn't moved once to make himself more comfortable, instead choosing to sit impossibly still, as if even twitching would break whatever atmosphere he had found here, making it forever lost to him. Here among an old pervert leering at girls half his age. You're a weird kid, Jiraiya said. He had wanted to say more. He had wanted to ask about all those small signs that the kid had probably knowingly threw his way, but something was telling him not to. Instead, he said those words instead, hoping the boy got his meaning. You don't know exactly how weird I am, Naruto responded, the first bit of actual calm seeping into the kid's posture. Jiraiya smiled. If nothing else, that was an invitation for him to learn more about the kid. The invitation was roundabout, like everything else the kid had shown him. But the sage had agreed to communicating with him in that way with his last comment, so he wasn't too peeved. Content with the situation, the toad sage turned back to the girls in the hot spring. They were giggling over something, and he wanted to find out what. Back with Naruto, he had simply delved into his peaceful place. It was surprisingly easier with Jiraiya's perverse giggling occasionally drifting his way. Never before would the future Hokage say this. But he honestly missed the sound. When it continued long after it started, Naruto almost sighed in relief. It appeared that this time he had finally gotten his message through to Jiraiya without him prying any further. It had only taken 43 tries. XXX Hey Gamaban was about as far as Naruto had gotten before the giant toad he was on quite literally roared at him. Naruto had to double check that he was in fact standing on a toad, and not some canine creature. Brat, what the fuck do you think you're doing summoning Emi in another goddamn pit? The boss toad, Gamabunta, asked. His voice was loud enough that Naruto was certain he would cause an earthquake, and destabilize the pit they were in. By the way, they were in a ravine, pit, hole in the ground. Jiraiya had thrown him in there for training, and Naruto had completely forgotten about that. Mostly because he didn't want to believe it actually happened. What do you mean again? Naruto asked. He had started to use chakra to stick himself to the boss toad's forehead, but the toad's natural slime destabilized whatever effort he had thought to make. Instead he just sighed and tried to balance the natural way. You know exactly what I mean, you fucking runt. Gamabunta then shook his head, mostly to get Naruto off so he could watch the blonde fall to his death, but also to gauge something. Also, why are you so fucking small? Realization dawned on Naruto. Wait, are you, and why aren't you summoning Kichi? Ain't he your familiar? Well, he is, but that's hardly the point. You see, Boss Toa then summoned him. I'm outta here. And just like that, the boss summon was gone. Before he disappeared, Naruto had dashed to the side of the ravine and stuck himself there. Weathering the smoke from the great toad's departure, Naruto made his way back up the side of the cliff. Once he reached the top, Jiraiya made his way over to the boy. With a smile on his face, he attempted to pat the kid on the shoulder, only to be winded by a surprisingly strong punch in the gut. Naruto, while not as proficient as Sakura, could utilize Tsunade's strength abilities as well. I guess I deserve that, Jiraiya wheezed. To the man's credit, he recovered not long after he said that. Don't ever throw me down a damn ravine again, Naruto growled, his eyes a slightly purple tint. It worked though, you summoned Gamabunta. I heard him cursing from here. Jiraiya wiggled his eyebrows, his smile back on his face. He was obviously pleased with himself. Naruto was not. What if I didn't? Huh. Would you have jumped down and miraculously saved me? Jiraiya's face wasn't very comforting. Would you have summoned Gamabunta for me? Jiraiya's face was betraying his guilt. Would you at least try? Like anything? Jiraiya's face was downright mutinous. I hate you, Naruto muttered. The behemoth of a man snaked his arm around the blonde's shoulder. And to think, you're going to be spending the next month training with me. Naruto wondered if it was too late to go check up on Orochimaru. He turned to his mentor with an exasperated look on his face. Hey pervy sage. Yeah, Jiraiya asked. He was rubbing his stomach even though Naruto was sure the man was already better. What would happen if someone from, say the past, were to use the summoning technique? Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. He wasn't expecting that question. Why? Just curious is all. Well, if I had to guess, Jiraiya grumbled, due to the nature of seals and sealing energies, the person would summon a version of the creature that existed in their time. We pull summons through both space and time when we summon them, after all. Oh, Naruto deadpanned. How marvelous. Indeed. Jiraiya grumbled once more. He scowled at his pupil one last time before shrugging and going back to what he was doing. The girly mag wasn't going to read itself. XXX Hey Orochimaru. I'm here to check up on you, Kyuubi said as he took his place amongst the gory remains of Orochimaru's experiments. Oh Kyuubi, it is an actual delight to see a familiar face. I hypothesized that you would return with Naruto, but I wasn't sure. Orochimaru didn't seem surprised at all by the Biju's entrance of fire. He made his way over to the foxy Naruto clone, and shook his hand. Neither person seemed particularly concerned that Orochimaru was covered in viscera. Why are you a child? The Kyuubi huffed. I don't know. None of us know. It just is a thing. Can't you control your form? We went over that too. And what was the conclusion that you guys reached? Orochimaru asked. He had went back to carving up the man on the construction table. We hadn't actually reached the conclusion, Kyuubi said, his voice rising an octave as he realized what he was saying. Oh, Orochimaru said. His face was pensive as he cut into a man's chest. The man was decidedly not happy about that. I can't believe we never came to a conclusion. How had we glossed over this? Orochimaru hummed. He nicked an artery and blood splattered on his cheek. With his unnaturally long tongue the snake Sanin licked the gooey life substance off his face before turning to address his visitor. Well, maybe they just assumed that they didn't have an answer. If you couldn't change your form back, then they probably couldn't either. Tell me, what did it feel like when you realized you couldn't change back? The Kyuubi was silent. You never checked to see if you could change back. The way Orochimaru said it was a confident statement. "It's not my fault," Kyuubi screamed. The man on the table winced at the sudden explosion of sound, and the Kyuubi took a moment to apologize. "Have you ever been around the boy for extended periods of time? It's like every stupid decision he makes starts making sense." The Kyuubi then paused, visibly shaking before his sudden realization. "I'm catching his stupid." Orochimaru hummed again. He used the bloody glove to rub his chin in contemplation. For some reason the blood that was smudging on his face didn't bother him at all. Then again, it apparently didn't bother anyone in the room. "Oh, I know. I was in the village for a single day, and I just started dancing everywhere. Honestly, I'm surprised the leaf still stands today if Naruto has that kind of effect on people. I think it's a passive effect of the talk no jutsu." Kyuubi shivered. He drew his legs up into the chair he sat in. That it was a torture chair complete with shackles, and caked in blood didn't seem to matter. You just have to follow whatever he suggests. It starts off small, but you don't realize that you're slowly acquiescing to his demands. He says something stupid and you might even say no. After a while you just go along with his stupidity. "You know, you never told me how he does that jutsu." Kyuubi glared at the mad scientist. Said mad scientist chuckled in response. "I kid. Kyuubi. I know you don't know it either. No one knows it except for him. It's scary. It's a good thing he's an idiot. It's a great thing he's an idiot." So Orochimaru started. "The transformation." "Oh right," the Kyuubi said. His eyes lit up as the realization that he might be able to shapeshift again crossed his mind. Closing his eyes, the fox boy allowed his chakra to coalesce around him like wisps of bubbly red gas. It started off pretty sedated, but proceeded to spin faster and faster until the Kyuubi suddenly exploded. The force of Kyuubi utilizing his chakra created a concussive blast that splattered the viscera he was sitting into all parts of the room, coating the walls and ceiling in red. Somehow that tidied the place up more than it dirted it. "Ah yes, it used to use a great deal of concentration to shapeshift for you." "Shut the hell up, Snake. You're breaking my concentration." The Kyuubi's face scrunched up, a cute feature on Naruto's face made deadly with the Kyuubi's addition, as he attempted to use his chakra to force his will upon the world around him. As both a fox and a fragment of the chakra that once presided over the world, the Kyuubi had the ability to manipulate his surroundings and small doses to the things directly around him. When he used his ability on himself, however, the process was laughably easy. He used to be able to shapeshift all the time with just a thought. But ever since he came back in time, the act had become difficult. "How is it working?" Orochimaru asked. He was genuinely curious as he leaned forward over the autopsy table he was using. The man, who was definitely still conscious, looked over as well. He was distinctly less hot, however, as his primary concern was his exposed chest area. "Better when you're not talking, Snake." The Kyuubi didn't look like he was having the best of times. He seemed to be struggling pretty hard against something. "Are these gods?" "Yes. Are they interfering with your technique?" "I'm not sure," Kyuubi stammered out, barely able to talk. Orochimaru was annoying him more and more as time went on, but Kyuubi knew he couldn't simply kill the man. Orochimaru had become progressively more shifty as the years went on, and as such was harder to kill than a ninja cockroach. And those guys were really hard to kill. The problem with this dilemma was that Orochimaru was cognizant of his difficulty to be put down as much as everyone else was. The only foreseeable way to kill the man seemed to be to talk no jutsu him. The problem with that plan was that it allowed the use of the infernal technique, and that was, in itself, a terrible idea. "Can you feel a foreign influence?" Orochimaru continued to ask. Kyuubi could already feel the madman's scientific side coming out. He would be curious and inquisitive of everything until his interest and curiosity were sated. Something that might take quite a while. "Yeah," Kyuubi growled. "It's you, talking to me. After I told you to shut the hell up." "I see," Orochimaru said. His voice hinted with a tinge of mirth. He started the process of writing something down, only to realize he had both nothing to write on, and nothing to write with. Looking around, his eyes fell on the somehow still alive man in front of him. With a careless shrug, the Sannin took the scalpel he was holding, and started carving his findings into the man's skin. "Are you documenting this?" Kyuubi asked. His eyes were barely open, and yet he could still tell the man was up to something he would find annoying. "Indeed I am," Orochimaru answered. "May I ask why?" Kyuubi asked. Orochimaru smiled. He wasn't evil anymore, but the act still made all those who saw it feel greasy and wrong. "Why, yes, you may. You see, Shappa shifting is the ultimate form of mastery and manipulation over the body, and thus, the mortal. If I can control my mortal self, my immortal soul would never have to die, and I could finally reach that pinnacle I have been searching for my entire life." Kyuubi bothered to open his eyes at that. That reminds me, why do you want to be immortal anyway? Why do you want to eat everyone? Because it's fun. The Kyuubi yipped, an actual smile breaking out on his face. Well, there you go. The Kyuubi didn't really have anything to say to that answer. XXX, so are you from the future? Tenten asked, her scroll of sealed weapons coiling around her like a very dangerous snake. Well, fuck, Niji cursed, annoyed but mostly exasperated as the world froze around him once more. Naruto was the first to teleport back to him. Niji. Yeah, Naruto. Niji already knew where his friend was going with this. What the fuck? The blonde Hokage asked, pointing at Tenten. It's not that hard. Just don't tell her we're from the future. Don't act too out of place. It's not that hard. Well, apparently it is. Niji yelled, his eye twitching. This reset is still happening, and I've done this how many times now? I dunno, Naruto said. He collapsed to the ground as he shrugged. I haven't been counting. I have, Sasuke sighed as he walked into the time-frozen clearing where Team Guy was supposed to be training. 42 times. Honestly, one would think you'd learn how to do this by now. Yeah. Niji deadpanned, not wanting to lose his cool to the Uchiha. One would think. It's not even that hard. Naruto, and I actually destroy stuff. The Kyuubi eats people. Orochimaru is out there and I'm pretty sure he's elbow deep in a person. And yet it's never any of us. It's always you. How are you messing up this bad? No idea. Niji ground out through gritted teeth. It's actually pretty impressive, Orochimaru said, his voice smooth like silk, and none the less creepy for it. The first thing I did once I was active in this world was decapitate Kabuto, and even that wasn't enough to rewind the world. Congratulations, Hyuga child. Said Hyuga child was silent. A compliment from Orochimaru was never a good thing. Rather than insult the man who was so obviously stronger than him, however, Niji chose to ignore him. It was a valid tactic for everyone else around here. Everyone looked around for the Kyuubi, who usually arrived after Naruto. When he didn't appear, everyone looked at Naruto. He said he was busy with something stupid. Everyone looked at Orochimaru. Why does that mean me? The snake scientist asked. Because you're the next person he goes to when he wants to do something stupid, Sasuke huffed. He made to fold his arms, an action that was implanted in his young body's muscle memory, only to realize he only acknowledged the one hand. Stuffing his right hand back in his pocket, he put his hand on his hip. Orochimaru smiled. Good to see my critical analysis teaching stuck with you, Sasuke-kun. Don't call me that. Call me that again, and I'm trapping you in another dimension, one without food or water. Sasuke then thought over something. Or air. Probably won't be enough to kill him, Naruto added. He had started to lie on the ground. I know, but it'll make me feel good to know he doesn't share a dimensional plane with me. You don't have your Rinnegan, Orochimaru said with a sneer. Sasuke blanched. I'll find a way. Persevering in the face of insurmountable odds, Orochimaru asked, his sneer widening. I've raised you well. Sasuke almost wretched. Back to topic. Niji said, unsure. He wasn't comfortable with the focus being on him, but he wasn't comfortable with this either. Thank you for letting that carry out, Naruto whispered. The blonde looked truly contented. Ah yes, the Kyuubi is back at my hideout. He's trying to shapeshift. We never did figure out if he could. Quite, Orochimaru hissed. He managed to be both soothing and unnerving at the same time. It was a feat that was altogether unnerving. Also, how are you managing to mess this up? It's not very hard. I don't know. Niji screamed. Even he was getting annoyed by his constant mess-ups. It just keeps happening. Have you tried not telling her? That's the thing, Niji said, his eye twitching. I haven't been telling her. She's just been figuring it out. As soon as I enter the training ground, she stops what she's doing and asks me if I'm from the future. Maybe you look different. Like you're from the future. I can't change my appearance. Niji deadpanned. It was one of the misfortunes of not really being able to change anything. Maybe it's your face, Sasuke suggested. Niji stared at him, his cold, unblinking Hyuga eyes, and face chiseled out of stone, not giving away a single emotion. Maybe not. Did you try killing her as soon as you walked into the area? Naruto asked. Everyone stared at him. Naruto. Why would that work? Naruto shrugged. It's worked for me. Sasuke, who was about to say something, stopped his train of thought. He has a point. I've seen him kill a lot of people without repercussions. Now that you mention it, so have I, Orochimaru hissed. Sasuke, who was standing next to him by chance, edged away. I think that's more along the lines of the gods just being too exasperated with you to go through the trouble. See. It works. Naruto chirped. Just try it. Worst case scenario, they notice something is wrong, and we're back here again. So it literally can't be any worse than what you've already been doing. Niji punched the Uchiha in the shoulder. Fine, Niji admitted. More just to get the two boys off his back. I'll try it. But it won't work. XXX Niji walked into the training ground he usually used by Team Guy, and proceeded to enter his stretches. His sensei, Guy, was off currently demolishing a different part of the area with his carbon copy studently. Passively. They didn't mean to destroy everything. The nature of their training just demanded that outcome. Halfway through his stretches, his female teammate, a girl by the name of Tenton, had finished her target practice, and made her way over to greet him. Upon reaching him, however, she suddenly stopped, hand rubbing her chin as she contemplated him. "So are you from the Fu?" she started to ask, before Niji swiftly tapped her heart with his gentle fist. The action immediately killed her. The girl collapsed to the ground, body twitching as it registered its shock. "There, that should do it," Niji said. He folded his arms as he waited for the world around him to freeze. He was horrified when it didn't. Blue, black, white and red eyes stared down on the still, unmoving body of the leaf Kunoichi. Her eyes were blank, vacant and lifeless as they stared off into the horizon. Gone was the vibrancy and exuberance that Tenton once held, replaced now only by the cold, unfeeling stillness of death. Sasuke made it about 3 more seconds before he turned and walked away. "Where the hell do you think you're going?" Niji asked. His face was twisted into a snarl. The Uchiha stared back at his time-traveling companion, none worse for the wear despite the hostile nature of his companion. "Why away from here, of course?" Sasuke spoke, his voice laden with apparent superiority. "I would have thought that obvious." Niji rose, obviously miffed at the Uchiha's words. He was soon stopped, however, as Naruto laid a hand on his shoulder. With a stern shaking of his head, Naruto waved his Hyuga friend off. Grudgingly, Niji let Sasuke go. "You're a prick," the Hyuga called out, still staring at Sasuke. Said boy just smiled before shimmering away. As soon as he was definitively gone, Niji jerked his arm away from Naruto. Glaring at the future Hokage, Niji moved back to the body of his teammate, resting her unmoving head on his lap once more. "Why did you protect him?" Naruto chuckled. "Protect him? He's way stronger than you know. I was protecting you from him. You should have let me slug him, at least once." He was being a dick. At this point, I'm pretty sure that an Uchiha's default state of being is being a dick. Naruto took Tenton's hand into his own. It was still slightly warm, proving nothing if not but the recentness of her death. But this time, at least, he's being productive with his dick qualities. "What do you mean?" Naruto inclined his head, gesturing to behind the boy. Niji turned, looking over to the forested area outside the clearing they were in. The grunts and explosions that signaled the 2 green beasts of Konoha's combat was ringing out from the direction. It was constant, so Niji had started to drown it out. Soon, however, an explosion louder than the previous ones rang out, and a gust of warm, dry air blew the leaves off the trees. "What was that?" Niji asked. Naruto shook his head. "That was Sasuke. He went off to distract the bushy brows, and the whatever that was. He likes to distract people with explosions. Lots of fire and sharp things everywhere. That should keep the bushy brows on their toes and away from here for a bit." "Why would you need them away from here? Isn't it obvious?" Kyuubi asked. "We don't want them seeing this." He gestured wildly down at the dead body before them. Tenton's wide, brown eyes stared at the sky empty, and faded. "Why not?" Niji asked. "The worst that would happen would be the boy trailed off." He went silent for a few seconds, eyes darting around wildly as he contemplated things. Then, without warning, the Hyuga boy darted to his feet, turning and sprinting towards the ever-increasing explosions. He made 1 bound, then 2 before a small orange blur bowled him over. Niji tumbled on the ground a fair way before finally stopping. "What's your problem?" he screamed at the young Hokage whose shoulder checked him. Naruto shook his head. "My problem? What's yours? What do you?" Niji trailed off. "I'm going to get Guy-sensei and Lee. If they see what has happened here, they'll notice something's off, and time will reset." Naruto's stare was hard. His eyes were focused as they bore into the Hyugas. So intense was his gaze that Niji had to look away. "How do you know?" Niji turned back around. "What do you mean? How do you know that it will reset time? Isn't that what always happens?" Niji's voice was unsure. Naruto seemed to be going somewhere with his thoughts. "Yes, but obviously the gods aren't being consistent with their time-altering whims. Some changes to the past are being allowed, while others aren't. You said as much yourself." Niji was silent, intent on seeing where the Hokage was going with this. "If the gods let Tenton die, what makes you think that showing the bushy brows is going to change that? They obviously don't care to revive her. They don't care about the repercussions. We have to at least try." And then they come here, shocked and angry. Naruto's eyes were full of fire, challenging the young Hyuga to oppose him. "Then what? What's your brilliant plan, Niji?" Niji was silent. He glared at the orange genin in front of him. all too aware of the sudden change in demeanor despite his flared emotions. The boy was calm, but his stance was firm. He was sure of himself in a way that made him seem dependable, and Niji was forced to almost cow before him. It wasn't always obvious, with the childlike body, and immature personality, but Niji was now aware that he was in the presence of a future Hokage. Well? Naruto asked again. What then? I don't have a plan, Niji mumbled. Naruto raised a golden eyebrow. What was that? I said I don't have a plan, Niji shouted. His fists were clenched at his sides, holding in his anger that he knew was now mostly misplaced. I don't know what to do right now, okay? Is that what you want me to say? Is this what you want to hear? Naruto stared at his time-traveling counterpart, eyes hard and stern, for a few more seconds, before clasping the Hyuga on the shoulder. The action shocked the man out of most of his temper, even for a few seconds. With the following smile, calm, and gentle unlike most of his smiles, Naruto effectively disarmed the 17-year-old. Yes, Naruto said. His voice was soft, a vast contrast to what it was before. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what to do. The sooner you admit that, the sooner you can start working on a solution. Wait. What? Niji asked. He was effectively confused. There were many times when I was clueless about what to do. Being Hokage was a difficult start for me. It was. Niji asked. He was meaning to ask some questions about the future. But life was hectic right now for his time-traveling companions. Oh, totally, Naruto said. He sat on the grass, before gesturing Niji to take a place next to him. The Hyuga was hesitant, but he took a seat on the surprisingly soft grass in the training ground. Did you know I didn't even attend my inauguration? What? Why? Niji was confused, but also amused. His voice rose in octaves only someone used to talking to a Hyuga could hear. Naruto chuckled. Promise you won't laugh. I make no promises when you're involved. Probability and sense don't survive very long when exposed to you. Naruto laughed at that. It was a curious thing, booming while soft like velvet. I suppose I deserve that. Makes sense too. On the day that I was supposed to be sworn in as Hokage, I, the strongest ninja in the Leaf Village, was taken out by my 4-year-old daughter. Niji, to his credit, managed to not laugh. Instead, he simply gaped. Truthfully, it was a more fitting reaction. You were what? Niji asked after he managed to get over his surprise. Yep. Hinata found me knocked out after I was crowned. Konohamaru transformed into me and took my place in the ceremony. But, how? I've seen you get punched through a building. Naruto chuckled. You don't know your niece then? What? What did she do? Niji asked. He was a little afraid to ask. His supposed niece had managed to take out a man who could casually slice mountains in two, and supply power to an entire army. An entire army that was, in fact, composed of entire armies. Niji's sanity shivered at the thought of his beloved niece inheriting any of Naruto's qualities. It downright whimpered at the thought of her inheriting his unpredictability. She inherited the Byakugan, Naruto said, an act so simple it was almost nonchalant. She used the gentle fist on me. You can't force open your chakra points. Niji screamed. How did she manage to, my dick, Niji? She used the gentle fist on my dick. The clearing was silent save for the machinations of the Kyuubi, who was still looking over Tenten with a stern eye. Though he was looking at the girl, his gaze seemed much farther off, as if he were looking at something completely different than what was in front of him. Why did? She was aiming for Bolt. Why was she aiming for Bolt? Don't know, Naruto said. Don't care. Why did you teach her the gentle fist at 4 years old? Niji asked. Was she a genius or no? She wasn't a genius. Niji asked, honestly curious. No, we didn't teach her the gentle fist. The clearing was once again silent. What? We didn't teach her the gentle fist. Then how did she use it on you? Listen, Niji. We don't know. Naruto growled, though there was no real anger behind it. She just did. When we asked her about it the next week, she refused to answer us. All we know is that whatever happened to her on that day was enough to traumatize Bolt and, wait, Niji said, holding a hand up. Why did you wait a week to ask her? Because that was how long it took for me to get out of my coma. She put you in a coma. Niji screamed, incredulous. How? I thought I established that I didn't know. It was better than what she did to Bolt. He was in therapy for months after she was through with him. What the hell did she do to Bolt? Niji? Naruto growled. We don't know. How many times do I have to say this? How do you not know what's happening to your own daughter? None of us know what's up with Himari. We just let her do her thing. And she doesn't murder us. What? Niji screamed. Naruto fought the urge to cover his ears. I think you're making a bigger deal out of this than necessary. No, I think I'm making the exact right amount of deal. Niji was starting to turn a little red. Why is my niece a murderer? She's not. Naruto said. Trying to placate his time-traveling partner. She hasn't murdered anyone, yet. What do you mean yet? I don't know what Anko has her doing down in the interrogation department. But she assures me that Himari has yet to take a life. By the way, did we tell you about Anko? She has changed so much and, Niji started. It was obvious that he was starting to break down by now. Why is Himari in? Have you ever seen Hinata angry? Like, pissed off? Yeah. She got that and Kurama's bloodlust. Oniji responded. He was back to normal. I understand now. The clearing was silent once more. You do realize she's going to kill all of you when she becomes a ninja, right? Oh totally, Naruto responded, without a care in the world. That's why we are making her a ramen chef. Is she allowing that? Niji, I don't think Himari cares about anything as long as she's happy. That's why we buy her a sunflower every day and let her cook whatever she wants for dinner. Naruto rubbed his nose as he considered his next words, though to be fair, the estimated death toll for even that profession is higher than we're comfortable with. Niji stared at his companion, completely at a loss for words. Are you joking? He finally asked. Naruto continued to stare at the sky. After a few moments, he turned to Niji and smiled a megawatt smile. Of course I am, the blonde Hokage said. Niji gaped once more. What? You were joking this whole time? About all of that? Yeah, Naruto said, his voice enthusiastic. Mostly. That's great. Wait, mostly. The point is, I distracted you from what you were concerned about. Wait. Back up. What do you mean by mostly? Are you done yet, Kurama? Naruto asked his foxy counterpart, completely ignoring Niji. Kurama snorted. I was done like 5 minutes ago. Wait. Done with what? How's it looking? Naruto was ignoring Niji. Kyuubi appeared to be doing the same. Grandpa is coming in a bit. The sage. Why is the sage coming? Will he be able to do anything? Naruto's voice was just a tiny bit hopeful. The Kyuubi shrugged. I don't know. He didn't say anything other than that he was on his way. And on my way I was. What do you want, children? The sage Haguramo asked. His tone was curt, his words listing a bit as they left his mouth. Bags hung heavily under his eyes, made all the more prominent by his chalk-white skin. Gramps, what's going on here? Naruto yelled. He held up Tenten's hand to indicate her lifeless form. Why are we still here if Tenten is dead? Haguramo looked at the blonde with an upturned eyebrow. I didn't realize the life of that young girl dictated what you did. Should I call her Lord Tenten now? Clearly she has more value to you than, well, everything else you've encountered since we sent her back here. The vein slowly growing on Naruto's temple was as much an indicator to his rising ire as his eerie silence, so Kurama took over the explanation. What the idiot meant to ask was, why are we still here, and time not reset, if a pivotal person that hadn't died before is dead now? I loathe these creatures as much as the next guy, but even I know this human child was alive. Though? Haguramo asked, his voice rising an octave. Now you guys care about what happens to the timeline. When it suits you. Cut the crap, Grandpa. Naruto's voice was close to a growl. Just tell us why Tenten isn't coming back. The same reason why Mizuki isn't coming back. She wasn't needed. What do you mean? She's my friend. Of course she's needed. Naruto was now on his feet, having flew to the position rather fast in Niji's opinion. And you believe that to be a good enough reason? Mizuki was your teacher. I don't see you in a huff about him. Mizuki was a bastard and a traitor. He deserved to die. Though. And now the great Naruto Uzumaki gets to decide who may live, and who may die. Perhaps it is you who I should be calling Lord now. What's your problem? Naruto screamed. And it took everything Niji had to hold the boy back. Even then, the Hyuga was sure that Naruto was letting himself be restrained. You are, the sage said. He leveled a stare, nonchalant and passive, at the blonde Hokage, completely uncaring of the boy's ire. You and your friends have been running around deliberately changing things for a while now. Do you have any idea the amount of work it takes to reset an entire universe? Energies and complex techniques you couldn't even begin to imagine need to be utilized. And I'm the one that's forced to do them. Do you have any idea how hard it is to make someone wish for more hours in a day when that person lives in a timeless wonder zone? I'll bet it's pretty damn hard, Niji said. Haguramo nodded. Right indeed. It's pretty damn hard. So the gods, and I decided to come up with a pretty nifty solution. Remember when they said that they were actively going to fuck with you? Naruto, Niji and the fox nodded, though slowly. Well, we're going to implement that strategy now. We're only going to fix things that absolutely need to be fixed. For every one of your fuck-ups that could reliably be ignored, we're going to let them be. Regardless of whether or not it affects you. But Tenten is important, damn it. She did a lot in the coming years. Though? Haguramo asked. Like what? Naruto trailed off, mouth hanging open as he contemplated his next words. Naruto. Niji asked. He was concerned about his friend. Are you alright? Tell the sage about Tenten's accomplishments. Give me a moment. Naruto's face was screwed up. He stared at the ground hard, as if it would give him the answers he sought. Naruto. Neji asked again. You can't answer him, right? Naruto's answer was silence. He stood there, fingers cupping his chin as he contemplated something to contribute to Tenten's case. Seconds, then minutes ticked by as Naruto tried, and failed, to produce something substantial. Naruto. Neji asked. His voice was pathetic, almost begging. I can't think of anything. Neji was silent. Why not? You think of something? Naruto screamed in his defense. Neji huffed. Fine, she's necessary because the Hyuga boy silenced. His eyes roamed as he searched his mind for a suitable answer. Seconds, then minutes ticked by as both Hokage and Sage awaited the Hyuga's answer. Finally, after what seemed like an hour, the Hyuga boy spoke. She's really good with weapons. And I'm done here, Hagoromo stated, before turning. A hole in reality ripped open in front of him. Just as he was about to float through, Naruto called out to him. Wait, Gramps, don't you think you're being a little unfair? As unfair as an entire group of people purposefully making my life hard, or as unfair as that same group of people shifting the blame of those very same actions that makes my life hard onto me. Either one works. Both have been pissing me off. Naruto blanched, his face going as white as sheet. I didn't know you were being blamed for our actions. Ah yes, Hagoromo stroked his beard. I believe the gods summed up my involvement in your chicanery, as your species, your problem. Wait, Neji said, too shocked by recent revelations to remember his grief. By that logic, aren't we their creations? Aren't we inherently their problem as well? Hagoromo sighed. It was a deep one, laden with the woes of a man burdened with an impossible load. Technically, yes. Bringing that point up to them in conversation, however, doesn't have as obvious an outcome. The sage then rubbed his temples. The repercussions for that were monumental. Never oppose the gods, children. Neji pointedly looked at Naruto and Kurama, then behind himself, at the explosions that rang throughout the training field they were in. Somehow, the sage's statement seemed directed at certain people more than others. Regardless, I'm not inclined to care about your problems, nor how fair our decision is regarding your problems. Simply put, I'm too stressed, Naruto. Our decision is final, and you have to live with it. I wouldn't have to live with it if you let me go back to my own time. Naruto pouted like a petulant child, which, technically, he was at the moment. That is also a decision you have to live with. The sage seemed to drag far too much enjoyment from that statement. He didn't outwardly show it, but his staff waved through the air in a way reminiscent to an excited puppy's tail. He has a point, Naruto, Kurama growled. A mischievous smirk adorned his face, showing far too much teeth, and more than enough fox-like canines. Naruto caught onto his companion's tone immediately. Yeah, I suppose you're right. It's far better if we just stay here. What are you two doing? Hagoromo asked. He didn't like where this was going. We're just doing what you wanted, Gramps. We're staying here, living here, and doing what comes naturally to us when we live. May I take my leave, Naruto? You may. Naruto nodded. Before his head even fully rose again, Kyuubi was gone, vanishing in a miasma of fire and sulfur that scorched the grass where he stood. Where did he go? Oh, you know, Naruto answered. As he finished, another explosion, this time much bigger than the Uchihas, sounded from somewhere within the village. Screams of terror could be heard as the village hidden in the leaves cried out as one. Places. Naruto, this isn't funny. Where is he? Why is he there? Indeed, Kurama was currently rampaging through the hidden leaf village in his full, nine-tailed glory. Houses were stomped underfoot with every step he took, and fires erupted from his mere presence. What is he doing? Hagoromo cried. Kurama was doing too much. There is no way he could simply wipe the memories of the entire village. The Kyuubi incident was too much of an impact on their lives. It appears he is trashing the village. Naruto eyed a house as it flew over their heads, casting a shadow over them all. It landed slightly behind them, causing a thunderous, deafening boom. Yes, I'm almost certain that is what he is up to. Why? Boys will be boys. Foxes will be foxes. I doubt any other foxes act like this, Neji said. He was a little shaken up by the casual way the Jinchuriki pair discarded so many lives, but he saw their plan. It was a gamble, but there was no way for him to exactly stop their gamble either, so he went along with it. I suppose, Naruto mused, his hand cupping his chin again. But I can't think of any other reason why foxes went extinct. Foxes aren't extinct, Neji said. They still exist. Oh, really? Naruto's tone was challenging, but still playful. Altogether, it was an out-of-place tone considering the wreckage and flames that constantly flew their way. Seeing as they were several miles away from the village, this was more impressive than not. Really? Niji responded. He was grasping onto the conversation with everything he had. If he wavered, even a little, he feared he might drown in the ridiculousness of the situation. There are tons of them out there. No reported extinctions. Then when was the last time you've seen a fox? Niji turned. His gaze fell on the several hundred-foot-tall monster that was currently destroying everything they loved. Besides him, I haven't met any other foxes besides him. Me either. Face it, Niji, they don't exist anymore. Niji looked like he wanted to argue, but he decided against it. The sage was looking pretty annoyed by now, and somewhere deep down inside himself, Niji was sure this was Naruto's intention. Is this supposed to be proving anything? Hagoromo said through clenched teeth. It seemed he really hated to be ignored, because no matter how much Kurama destroys, nothing will bring Tenten back. She wasn't necessary to your futures, so she won't be revived. We'll just reset until just after your friend murdered her. Niji's jaw tightened, and he felt the respect he had for the sage wane, just a little. He was willing to let an innocent girl die just to prove a point to Naruto. That was an incredibly petty and childish thing to do, though he supposed that to a god, a single human life didn't mean as much as it did to them. No, the insult to everything was that Naruto was a blockhead. If he didn't want something done, then it wouldn't happen, or if it did, Naruto would simply not believe it happened out of pure spite. Tenten's death would be for nothing. Niji stepped forward, ready to throttle the man he revered not seconds ago when Naruto put a restraining hand on his shoulder. The Hyuga stopped, but only for the knowledge that Naruto was truly stronger than him. The Uzumaki looked him in the eye before smiling. So much genuine emotion was reflected in the action that even Niji was affected. Reluctantly, he stood down. Yeah, Gramps, you can do that, Naruto chirped. His grin was downright malicious now. Though he wouldn't show it, the sage started to feel a bit of fear, and it would probably hammer home the fact that Tenten wasn't coming back. Where are you going with this? Oh, well, nothing. Naruto waved his hand dismissively. It's just, I was wondering, how many useless lives are you willing to give up before you have to start reviving people? Hagoromo's stare went from slightly fearful to shocked, then settled on enraged. You wouldn't. I wouldn't, Naruto parroted, before whistling. The tune was high-pitched and shrill, and Niji almost had to cover his ears to block it out. Not a single second after he was done, however, did Sasuke land in the clearing, left hand tucked away in his pocket and right hand in a fist touching the ground. Bended knee and head bowed, Sasuke responded to his call. Yes, Lord Hokage, cut the shit, Sasuke, Naruto growled, the first signs of real irritation in his voice. Apparently, Gramps and his bosses don't believe us when we say that we can't change landscapes. Remember what we planned to do when we first got here? Sasuke smiled. It was a vicious thing, promising only dark and painful things. Destroy everything and anything we can, until the very gods themselves give up. Yep. But of course I would never allow you to do that, Sasuke. I'm the responsible Hokage, who must keep all of his ninja in check. Oh no, Sasuke cried, his hand over his heart in shock. Whatever will I do? Yeah, Naruto said, a chuckle seeping in somewhere. That's why you're banished. War crimes. You allowed Sakura's pink hair genes to continue in another generation. Inside Sarada sleeps the genes of a fashion disaster. Ino said it herself. I'm sorry, but you're no longer a Konoha ninja. You can't do this, Sasuke cried in mock horror. I can, Naruto responded, his face stern, though it was a quickly fading facade. I'm Hokage. I can do what I want. Begone, Sasuke Uchiha. I don't want to see you until you're a Konoha ninja again. Naruto then tapped his chin, although the only way that could happen is if someone somehow turned back time, until before I banished you. Oh well, give me your headband. Sasuke, in response, tore the headband off his head, and tossed it to his blonde counterpart. Naruto caught it, before staring at it. It was just a standard issue, but it was one that would survive Sasuke his entire ninja career. Seeing the metal once again pristine, and without a scratch, and the cloth perfectly blue, and not in tatters, was almost surreal. I can't believe this, Sasuke droned. The acting and pretending to show emotion had already run its course for the Uchiha. I'm so angry, I'm going to go on a rampage, and kill everything I see. Well, if that's the case, then you can start that way. Naruto pointed in a general direction that led to the land of lightning. Konoha is already being torn down by the fox. Good idea, Captain. I mean not Captain. Sasuke mock saluted Naruto, before turning in the direction Naruto indicated for him and dashing away. Hey, while you're at it, take out the bushy brows. They're gonna be a problem. Naruto didn't get an answer, but the telltale sound of 1,000 birds struggling to be released was a good indicator of the boy's response. Satisfied, Naruto turned to Hagoromo, his smug grin answered by a furious scowl on the sage's face. What the hell do you think you're doing? The sage asked. He was close to bursting. Naruto could feel it. I like to think of it as making an investment. You've sent two of the strongest creatures this world has ever known on genocidal quests. 2 cities, wiped off the face of the planet just. For what? What are you trying to accomplish with this? Naruto yawned, stretching his arms behind his head. Why, we're trying to prove a point to you here, Gramps. And what point is that? The sage had his hands clenched until they were wide around his staff. Naruto's earlier mirth disappeared as well. With a face chiseled from stone, and a voice tempered and more, the young Hokage stepped forward until he was just inches away from his ancestor. His head crested just above the sage's folded legs as said man floated in midair. We're not playing by your rules, old man. Naruto's voice was hard and cold. For the first time since they returned to the past, Neji was able to see the real scope of the man in front of him. This wasn't Naruto, the hyperactive prankster child. This was Naruto, war hero, and leader of a militaristic nation of murderers and assassins. An iron will and loads of power was needed to keep such a thing in line, and Naruto had both in spades. We played along with your terms until now, mostly out of respect for you. Neji resisted the urge to snort as Naruto said those words, while never breaking eye contact with the sage. That either boy Naruto, or Sasuke, could regard their complete and total dismissal of the six-path sage, and the gods that governed even him as respectful was laughable. But we did so out of benevolence, not obedience. If you want us to stay here, to play nice with all the machinations that you have planned out for us, you're going to have to make some concessions for us too. Understand? Hagoromo, to his credit, didn't even flinch under the blonde Hokage's ire. And what exactly makes you think that you're in the proper position to dictate these terms? So what? You can destroy and kill, and take as many lives as you want, but that means nothing in the end. It's a headache for me, but I can just reset the world, restoring their lives, over and over again. Hagoromo then stroked his beard, a condescending smile adorning his face. You have lived one life, boy. I have lived many, and I will live many more. I have been immortal far longer than you have. You will tire of your games long before I do. Perhaps, Naruto mused. But you're overlooking something. Something wholly crucial. And what is that? Hagoromo asked. He leaned down from his spot in midair to come face to face, ringed eyes to blue with Naruto. They held this stare for what seemed to be a tense eternity, until suddenly Naruto smiled. Well, you're forgetting 3 things actually. Naruto then held up 3 fingers, his index, middle, and thumb. Then, he put down his thumb. 1. That I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the world's most unpredictable ninja. Almost theatrically, Kyuubi destroyed the Hokage Mountain at the end of that declaration, adding a cinematic flair to it. Naruto then put down his index finger. 2. That I have a forbidden technique that I was being really good about not using. It seems that you nor the gods can counteract its effects. From behind the group, in the opposite direction of the village, distinctly Uchiha-like explosions rocked the very world. It wasn't visible, but the village hidden in the clouds was being wiped from the map. Finally Naruto was on his 3rd point. But he didn't put down his sole remaining finger, essentially flipping the sage off. And 3. No one ever fucks with me. And like that, Hagoromo had finally had enough. Twirling his staff, the sage abused his gifted power over reality, and froze time, this time including all of the time travelers in its power. Looking at the world through his powerful, ringed eyes, the man scowled at the gray expanse he was now looking at. Insufferable brat. To think himself so highly as to speak like that to me. Perhaps he really does take after my sons. The sage then looked around. Kurama had done an amazing job in the work that he had done. With another twirl of his staff, the sage was directly above the hidden leaf. Able to fully survey the damage, he sighed, releasing all of his pent-up rage. This is going to take me forever to fix. And that wasn't even the beginning of it. He couldn't see it, but he could feel the inconsistencies that Sasuke had wreaked by destroying the hidden cloud village. And though he had much less time, the Uchiha had done just as much damage. The very thought of it increased the headache he was feeling twofold. And the sage wished desperately for a break, or a vacation. Neither of those things were likely to be coming his way for quite some time, as the gods were slave drivers. Either way he would have some sort of break. So he used what limited freedom he had to get something he hadn't gotten in forever. A good conversation. Wake up, Kurama. I'm bored. Talk to me. Said Fox yawned, a loud, earth-shaking thing that it was, and casually ate the handful of ninjas he had in his hand as rich, fiery orange color returned to his fur, and scarlet anger returned to his eyes. He was teeming with untold rage, but such an existence was his default state. His focus then centered on his much smaller grandpa floating above him, and the demon fox sneered. Judging by the looks of things, you finally got sick of the brats, and decided to just freeze everything. Hagoromo smirked. The Kyuubi always did have a knack for somehow figuring things out. Accurate, as usual. Your intelligence has always been fascinating. The Kyuubi cackled in response. Yes, you know what they say about foxes. We are the most cunning of creatures. Quite, Haguramo said. A small smile graced his lips. It makes me wonder why you choose to act like such a simpleton when around those mortals. They're not all bad. If you reduce yourselves to their level, they're actually quite fun. Kyuubi sat on its haunches. It scrutinized its paws for a bit, before finding them wanting. Grimacing, it set to cleaning them by licking, but soon lost interest in that as well. Besides, once you hang around Naruto enough, you'll find that you can't help but stoop to his level. It's practically mandatory. Haguramo snorted, an act that seemed to dismiss the claim. I don't see the hype about him. He's an outstanding individual. But that so many of you regard him with almost deific reverence is baffling. Oh, I don't revere him, Kyuubi said, shaking his head vehemently. Haguramo eyed the Kyuubi warily for a second, before smiling. Then what do you call your acquiescence to his leadership and whims? Survival instincts. What? I call it a need to survive. I've been in direct contact with Naruto for a lot longer than you have, Gramps. So I know a thing or two. I've seen this boy survive things he shouldn't, in ways that couldn't, in any probability, be possible. He's a complete monster. But not in the way you think. Then in what way? His luck, Gramps. He's lucky in ways that no one can ever predict. You may think it's nothing big. You and the gods looked over his life from outside, all at once. Like some sort of anime. We've lived his life. It's a lot worse from our point of view. So trust me when I say this. Whatever you think it is that you've done to win, you haven't. Something somewhere is coming to turn this conflict around, and it will definitely be in his favor. Bullshit, Haguramo cursed. He had listened quietly to his surrogate son's claims, but had enough of the ridiculousness. He's frozen in time. He literally cannot do a thing to change anything until I say that he can. He's lost, this time for sure. Okay, Gramps, if you say so. The Kyuubi looked wholly unconvinced, and the sage picked up on it. Why are you so loyal to his cause? Haguramo legitimately couldn't wrap his head around it. It's not that I'm loyal, it's that statistically, I cannot afford to go against him. Isn't that why you guys brought him back in time? To make him experience his life without his luck. When Haguramo confirmed this, Kyuubi continued. And that plan has failed horribly. Luck is the one technique that will never abandon him, even against you. Even against your gods. Then where is it now? Haguramo asked bitterly. His arms were folded, and he turned his back on his giant, foxy child. In the distance, his powerful eyes could see the Uzumaki still frozen where he was, defiant eyes glaring up at where the sage was floating before time was frozen. His luck has failed him. He is powerless before me. And to think, he went through that whole tirade of 3 things I should remember. Oh, he told you those? Kyuubi asked. His ears pointed straight up in the air as his tail swished erratically behind him. Yes, Haguramo answered. Then you're fucked. Just wait for it. Something ridiculously stupid is about to happen to bail him out of the situation. What do you know what that speech is? Kyuubi asked. A grin, small and cautious, appeared on his face. It's a combination technique. It fuses his talk no jutsu with his propensity for luck. It has a higher than 100% success rate. Just watch. Something stupid is coming. Impossible. Haguramo dismissed the claim immediately. I control this world. There is nothing that can move here without my permission. Not even you could, Kurama. Wait for it? Wait for what? What is it? I don't know yet. But it's coming. Nothing is coming. I only let you move. It doesn't care. And I'm done with talking to you, Haguramo growled. He didn't know why he thought that reviving the Kyuubi was a good idea. Twirling his staff, the sage prepared to freeze the Kyuubi again, when he heard something. A noise of some kind, echoing its way through the silent void of the time-frozen world. What is that sound? He asked, more to himself than anything. Kyuubi said, earning him a shush from his grandfather. Enough of that. Quiet. Haguramo then focused. The sound was constant, an undulating, almost satisfying thing. It was faint, but every second that passed allowed it to grow steadily louder, until it was fairly obvious what it was. Is that tearing? Haguramo asked. Kyuubi snickered. Prepare yourself. XXX, it was here. Back again. Something or someone had once more sapped the color from the world, bathing it in blacks, and whites, and grays. Around it, the wind stopped blowing, the sun stopped warming its being, and the people who would either marvel or cower from it were now frozen in infuriating indifference. For a being of constant, changing, beautiful colors, and hues, such a thing was an immense affront to its existence. Whatever it was that had done this atrocity was not given permission to do so. It would rue the day that it had offended a being of this magnitude, Whoever it was that stopped time would rue the day it wronged the Cune. XXX, what the hell is that? Haguramo screamed in unashamed awe. How the hell is that thing still flying around? Kyuubi asked in response. That rainbow Cune was an ever-present thing now, and it had proven to retain its thrower's knack for defying the expected. You know what that is? The sage asked, his eyes wide. I don't think anyone truly knows what that is. What I do know is that Naruto threw that Cune after infusing it with the power of all 9 Biju when we first got here. I don't know why it's still flying around. Though, you don't know why it's flying around? Nope, Kyuubi responded, carefree. Oh, Haguramo said, do you know why it's somehow tearing the time stop apart? Sure enough, the rainbow-hued Cune was flying through frozen air, tearing it apart with the sound of ripping fabric. It bled rainbow gas off its blade as it flew, and behind it the time stop gray was torn apart to reveal a renewed world, functioning normally and in color once more. I guess that's it then, Kyuubi muttered. Well, whatever it is, I'm putting a stop to it. Haguramo then disappeared, teleporting directly in front of the blade. Under my powers given to me by the gods, I command you to stow. The sage was roughly tossed to the side, as if he were a piece of crumbled up paper. The Cune continued on, as if completely undeterred by the man of almost deific ability that was so rudely dismissed. With eyes it definitely did not have, the Cune saw the frozen form of Naruto glaring up at seeming nothing. On a whim, it decided that its progenitor didn't deserve such a fate. In an explosion of power it made a beeline for the boy, stopping just short of him. Then it rested itself in his hand, left conveniently open though he was still flipping off the sage. Kurama, though laughing shortly before at the sage's bad luck, immediately fell silent at the spectacle. I have never been more afraid. Now in possession of the Cune that apparently existed outside of time, Naruto apparently gained its capabilities. Slightly confused, he looked around himself to see that not only was the sage not in front of him anymore, as he should have been, but that the entire world save for a straight line that led to himself was frozen in gray. So the sage had finally gotten tired of me, and froze everything, Naruto mused. He then looked at the Cune, still glowing with an untold amount of energy in his hand, and smiled. Enough of that then. Then Naruto stabbed the ground with the Cune, releasing all of the pent-up energy in it. Then the world exploded. XXX1, then 2, then 3, then 4. 4 seconds was all it took to notice that impossible forces had collided with each other, and torn the reality of the world they had created apart. Displeased, the gods attempted to notify Haguramo, their sage, of the event so he could fix it. Then they realized that the last vestiges of the man was in fact in that shattered world. Even more displeased, they exerted their will, and put the world back together. Though in reality, it took them far more effort than they cared to admit. XXX, what did you do? Haguramo asked. All he could remember was an explosion of truly overwhelming rainbow-hued power. Before everything was pain. He suffered from it for what seemed like an eternity, before finally everything went black for him. He was an immortal, but even he could see what death was like. And honestly, he was quite content. Then he was here, staring at the boy he was quickly coming to hate once more. I'm not sure, Naruto stated. The Cune was still in his hand, but the rainbow hues bleeding off of it and the overwhelming power therein was now absent. I kinda just went with the flow. Naruto then looked around. Color effused the world as it sprung forward in its most natural of states, but whatever it was, it seems to have worked. Time is going again. Ignoring the fact that this insane boy had done something that had potentially killed an immortal on what seemed to be a whim, the sage glared at Naruto, before righting himself in the air once more. Don't get too attached to it. Once I find my staff, I'm freezing it once more. Whatever you did with that odd blade you have there was apparently a one-time thing. Naruto chuckled. Oh, have fun with that. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Literally thousands of Narutos popped into existence. While you're doing that, I'm going to be doing something too. And what's that? I'm using talk no jutsu on literally everyone I meet. If you had trouble turning back time with just Sasuke under its influence, wait until you have to do it with everyone in the elemental nations. Haguramo then stared at the boy. XXX Neji stared at Naruto. What did you do? I'm getting that question a lot nowadays, Naruto responded. He sat with Neji in the middle of Team Guy's training ground as Tenten used the green beasts of Konoha as practice dummies. She never once hit them, but then again it was hard to tell if such a thing was due to her poor aim, their incredible evasion tactics, or the weapon's refusal to touch such horrid creatures. What matters is that I got her back. Neji grew silent. For once he agreed with his time-traveling counterpart. Leaning back, the boy rested as his weight sat against his palms. Letting out a sigh, Neji closed his eyes, and let the rhythmic cries of battle that Tenten shouted as she threw her wide assortment of weapons comfort him. By the way, the only way that Grandpa Sage could bring Tenten back was to use her future self. Have fun. Naruto then disappeared, having been a shadow clone the entire time. Wait. What? He asked, before he was glomped by his female teammate. Niji, you're back. Tenten squealed, joy evident in every bit of her being. Niji was caught up in her reverie, until he felt a familiar pinprick on the back of his neck. He soon lost all control of his body as it fell back. Did you forget that I used to coat my weapons in paralyzing poisons while you were dead, Niji? The kunoichi asked innocently. She twirled a senbon in her fingers, probably the one she used to paralyze Niji with, around her fingers. Oh well, it's okay. You'll get reacquainted with all of them, both my poisons and weapons, in due time. After all, Niji felt dread like he had never felt before. Pool in his stomach. Then again, it could just be Tenten, as that was where she chose to straddle him. You're going to be feeling all of them soon, Tenten continued. In return for the emotional abuse you caused me when you died. Prepare yourself, Niji. As he was paralyzed from head to toe, there was no feasible way the boy could have prepared himself for this. The Hyuga whimpered as he struggled to decide whether he was relieved his best female friend was back to life, or terrified. We'll start with your little Hyuga. Niji decided he was terrified. This seems like a terrible idea, Niji said as he stared at his opponent across the stadium. Said opponent just smiled, a radiant thing that seemed to be almost blinding. Chill out, Niji. Just think of it as a spar. Naruto screamed. He had his hands on his hips, and seemed almost nonchalant about the whole thing. Although to be fair, there wasn't much that Niji supposed Naruto would take notice of. He had faced down demons, gods, immortals, and monsters, and come out on top every time. Naruto could demolish mountains, and make current maps obsolete with just a passing whim. Sasuke, a legend in his own right and a man who, based on his own bragging, had eradicated an entire hidden village in this reset on Naruto's suggestion, even feared and deferred to this boy in front of him. No, Niji supposed that Naruto had very little to fear. Niji, on the other hand, had a lot to fear. The third round of the Chunin exams was a tournament-style knockout competition, and the first match had pitted the unlucky Hyuga against such a fearsome man. While Niji knew that he wasn't supposed to win this match either way, as he had lost it the first time around. That last time Naruto was just a mediocre ninja with the only thing going for him being an insane amount of pluck. This time around, Naruto could decapitate the entire audience with wind chakra, and a thought. I don't suppose you could pretend to punch me and I go down, right? Niji asked. Around this time in the past he would be spouting off some nonsense about fate and how it predicted everyone's lives, but such a thing just seemed so futile now. How could such a puny thing as fate ever possibly affect a monumental disaster like Uzumaki Naruto? Now Naruto hummed. He was rocking back and forth on the balls of his feet. One of the things I had to agree to the sage with in order to get Tenten back was that I would at least try to keep things consistent. If it gets him off my back, who am I to argue? Niji sighed. Such a thing was to be expected. Looking up in the stands of the arena, he could see his female teammate practically jumping out of her seat to root for him. He couldn't make out her words in the roar of the people, but a smile came to his face regardless at her enthusiasm. That smile was immediately crushed under the fear that recently started to be associated with her. Pulling his attention away from the kunoichi, lest his knees go weak, he focused on his opponent once more. Naruto had his hands behind his head now, looking for all the world like the kid he currently was, and not the supremely powerful Hokage he was supposed to be. It was a little disconcerting. I want a good, clean fight, the proctor said, a man whose name escaped the Hyuga at the moment. Since when did ninja fight clean? Naruto asked, a chuckle accompanying his words. The proctor smiled. To be honest, we didn't even have a concept of dirty fighting until recently. You want to know what changed that? Sure, Naruto said. A plucky little ninja created a double S-class forbidden technique, the proctor said. The smile on his face truly wicked. It can't be dodged, reversed, or resisted. It always works, and currently only one ninja can use it. Truly terrifying. I wonder what kind of person could make such a horrid technique. Niji stared at Naruto. Naruto stared back, not looking guilty in the slightest. It's not my fault you guys can't handle a simple conversation, the orange boy said. The proctor sneered. First off, that you think that we as trained killers from infancy would have any skill in social decorum beyond what we would need to efficiently kill someone is truly baffling. Secondly, what you do does not qualify as simply conversation. That you think it does says a lot about your twisted psyche. Huh, Naruto said. I have trained killers criticizing my psyche. I feel that's a life milestone. I can't feel it, the proctor said. I can't feel my sanity draining with every word I exchange with you. Really, it's your own fault for continuing this as long as you have. Niji found himself slowly tuning out of the conversation. Keeping his attention on any verbal engagement involving Naruto was a battle of endurance, and Neji learned long ago that Naruto could outlast anyone and everyone. Naruto had proven he could outlast death itself. Now that was a harrowing thought. So with the lazy eye Neji looked to see where the other time travelers were. Sasuke was, of course, finding a place to sulk by himself. To his dismay Sakura didn't want to let him have that right. XXX I can't even stand next to you, the pink-haired girl asked. Sasuke grunted. No you're creepy. How am I creepy, Sasuke? Okay Sasuke grunted. Answer this honestly. Do you or do you not have a doll somewhere in your house that looks suspiciously like me? Sakura was silent. And by the way, do you not have its features made of things that, at some point, actually came from me? Sakura looked away. I rest my case. You know Sasuke, it's not polite to sneak into other people's shrines, Sakura whispered. Sasuke paled, as he had guessed all that stuff about the doll. Using all of his ninja training, he tried to sneak away while Sakura was looking elsewhere. He did not succeed. XXX looking elsewhere, Neji attempted to look for the other time travelers. Eyeing expertly over Tenten, Neji focused on Orochimaru, currently masquerading as the Kazekage. XXX I'm Orochimaru, the fake Kazekage said, his words coming out through his teeth. You make the funniest jokes, Kazekage Dano, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage said. A quiet chuckle escaped the man's lips, and there was no way to describe it besides grandfatherly. But I must say making the same joke 83 times in a row is making it rather stale. No, it is not a joke, Sarutobi-sensei. I really am your student. Orochimaru looked pained to the point of utmost aggravation. Though, I must say Kazekage Dano, that just simply cannot be the case, Sarutobi said while rubbing his beard. And why not, sensei? Orochimaru asked. Because Orochimaru isn't stupid enough to appear before me without some sort of trick up his sleeve. I may be old, but even that snake bastard knows the extent of my powers. If he were you here, in this enclosed space without any sort of backup rivaling that of the former cages. Well, to put it in the most delicate and sophisticated terms I can, around now the room started to chill. To an insane degree the very air itself frosting over his unnatural shadow descended over the aged Hokage. Leaning forward slowly, Sarutobi invaded the hidden Sand Village leader's personal space quite easily and without care, his face coming dangerously close to the other man's. Well, I would say that the very best lesson I ever taught my students was to truly fear what I could do to them should they betray either me, or the leaf. You not being one of my students, don't know that lesson, but if you were one of my students, I guess it would be time for another lesson. No? Orochimaru, as the Sand's leader, shook his head violently as repressed memories suddenly came to the forefront of his mind. All too soon he remembered why exactly he had immediately summoned 2 Hokages to fight this rather ancient man. Quickly, as if it were never there, the oppressive aura that had gathered had fled the viewing balcony the 2 leaders were sitting in. Hiruzen was sitting comfortably in his chair. His aged back rested against the back of the cushioned chair, and his eyes closed in contentment. Great! So now that we have established that you are, in fact, not my wayward student, shall we enjoy the proceedings? Orochimaru nodded vigorously, not confident in the state of his voice. XXX Neji wasn't too sure what had happened up there, but he knew that he probably wanted no part of it. Tuning back into the conversation happening within his earshot, Neji managed to catch onto the tail end of it. For the last time, no, it doesn't make it legal if your shadow clones perform the technique, the proctor said through gritted teeth. To this Naruto just pouted, before kicking at the dirt. It was worth a shot, he whispered, folding his arms like a child. Neji smirked at the older man's actions, a glimmer of hope appearing in his heart. At the end of the day Naruto, while being insanely powerful, was still just a boy at heart. The fight would be long, and no doubt painful, but at the very least Naruto wouldn't do anything drastic. He was a childish man, if nothing else, and that usually equated to some sort of mercy. Begin, the proctor said, before jumping away to safety. Neji got into a fighting stance, an advanced form of the Hyuga's gentle fist style that he shouldn't have known yet. Sure, he was breaking some rules, but he needed at least this much if he was going to survive the storm that was Naruto. Try to take it easy on me, Neji shouted, his hope from before spreading throughout his bones. Naruto simply smiled back, his arms still folded. Of course, Neji, I normally would never be serious fighting against anyone that wasn't Sasuke. Neji smiled, relief filling his entire being. That's great. For a second there I actually feared you were going to then dread. Then dread filled his entire being. What do you mean by normally? Well, Naruto started. The boy started to walk around, his hand rubbing at his chin. Normally, I would understand that there was no possible way that anyone in the entire world would be able to stand up to me, and I would go easy on them, using as little of my power as possible to subdue them. Because it is just so easy to kill people when you can cut through them like paper. Niji unconsciously stepped back. He didn't like the way this was going. But, the blonde continued, sometimes, when I'm just so pissed off, I forget that my Rasengan has cut through a tree as wide as our entire village, and shifted the tectonic plates beneath us, resulting in earthquakes so far away from where I used it that I couldn't fathom visit those places. Niji leapt backwards. The situation was degrading fast. Thinking on his feet, he tried to imagine what he could have done to piss off the boy that was now slowly stalking towards him. The chakra emitting from his body so thick, that it was visible even without his Byakugan active. Did you know I took on a team of genin, Niji? Naruto asked. Niji shook his head, not trusting his voice to answer for him. Well, I did. And do you want to guess what I think is the best lesson I had ever taught them? Niji shook his head violently. He had a feeling that he did not want to guess. Go on, try. Well, that was a decision that was taken from him. Stammering out his reply, Niji stated that he didn't know. Well, I guess it can't be helped then. Naruto's voice was monotone, and there was a hint of danger there that was wholly apparent. I would say that the very best lesson I had ever taught my students was to truly fear what I could do to them if they should ever betray either me, or the leaf. Sasuke inspired it. Up in the stand, Sasuke stood behind Kakashi. He would deny it if anyone ever said he was cowering. You're not one of my students, Niji, but I think you'll benefit from that lesson. And with that, the blonde Hokage exploded from his position in a flurry of blue chakra. Niji had less than a second to react before he was subject to what he would refer to later on in his life as the worst experience he had ever had. XXX Orochimaru looked at the complete massacre that was happening below him in the arena with wide eyes. Long had it been since he had felt for another person, but the events down there made it certainly hard for him to keep that lack of empathy. Dear Sage, Orochimaru whispered, horror evident in his voice as it reluctantly left his mouth. What brutality! Though, Hiruzen asked, his eyes only now leaving the spectacle before him. I wouldn't go that far. The boy still has a long way to go. He has the makings of a fine Hokage though. Orochimaru just gaped at his former sensei, unsure as to whether or not the old man was serious. If the gentle, almost uncaring smile he had on his face was any indicator, the old man absolutely was. All at once, Orochimaru retracted his bitterness over not being chosen for the next Hokage. XXX Naruto. You promised the sage you would try to keep things the same. Niji half whimpered, half cried as Naruto stalked towards him. He was currently battered into the wall of the stadium. Far more bones than he believed he started with were broken. Did I? I don't remember. All I remember was that you had beaten Hinata to an inch of her life. Niji suddenly found out how he had pissed off Naruto. I did that to keep time the same, Naruto. And I'm doing this to keep time the same as well. This didn't happen last time. It didn't. Naruto asked. I don't remember. And the punishment continued. XXX Sasuke, both shearing and active, stared at the scene below him. Though the main Gekio spun an eerie red silence, the Uchiha stare was vacant, almost lifeless. That's terrible. Sakura whispered. Sasuke shook his head. If you let it affect you, he'll just dominate you forever. It's best if you just don't let it get to you. Shikamaru stared at the Uchiha, his face in shock for once. How do you not let that get to you? You just don't? What are you talking? Abu Sasuke rounded on the boy. You just don't? XXX down in the stadium, Niji lie in a broken, messed up heap in a crater in the floor of the stadium, or what once was a stadium. Right now it was more of a pockmarked hell on earth. The proctor made his way back out onto the stadium floor, carefully stepping around fluids that he was sure could incapacitate him immediately. It had been 5 minutes now since the match had ended, and he had not gotten very far. Cutting his losses, he simply called the match from where he was. Naruto said, his hands once more on his hips. Besides a bit of goo that stained his cheeks, slashing through the horizontal lines vertically, the boy looked none worse for the wear. Was all this necessary? The proctor asked. Absolutely, Naruto answered. Without another word, the boy turned and walked from the stadium, expertly maneuvering around his own wanton destruction in a way that was almost elegant. Upon reaching the demolished exit, Naruto turned around, nodded, and then continued on his way as if the last 5 minutes hadn't happened. Dear gods, the sumo whispered from his place in the stands. Beside him Tenten just laughed. She was the only person in the entire stadium able to do so, however, so her voice echoed around the entire thing unabated. You know, besides the Hokage's laughter, the good old prank god of Konoha, the young Kunoichi bellowed. I forgot how masterful he was. There's just something about it that far outstrips anything both had ever done. Down in the stadium Niji simply twitched in response. Though not from any sort of voluntary action. No, Niji had twitched from the itching powder currently filling every inch of his clothes, and the burn marks lining everywhere not covered by said garments. for when you upset the prank god of Konoha, you don't get off easy. XXX, so who do we root for? Tenten asked. She sat beside Naruto and an unconscious Neji as they watched Temari and Shikamaru fight in the stadium below. Dunno, Naruto said. He scratched his head, a frown marring his usually excited face. It's not nice to get between couples. Hinata told me that doing that was bad. Well, technically they're not a couple yet. Unless. Tenten stared harder at the two as they fought below. Shikamaru was currently hiding amongst the trees, trying to outsmart his better-equipped opponent. Are they back in time too? Naruto sighed. No, Tenten. I told you the only people back in time with us are Sasuke, Neji, and Orochimaru. Tenten glanced up at the viewer balcony hosting both the Hokage and the Sannin disguised as the leader of the Sand Village. Yeah, about that, why is he here? I don't know, Tenten. He's hard to get rid of. The Sandame looks like he's doing a good job. Indeed, Orochimaru appeared to be shaking in his robes. I'm sure it's nothing, Naruto muttered, never once even glancing up at the two leaders. For a while after the two fell into a comfortable silence, looking out over the battle that was effectively Shikamaru toying with his future wife. After a couple minutes, however, Tenten finally spoke up. So you want to show me? Naruto sighed. No, Tenten. Oh. Tenten cooed. Why not, Naruto-chan? You know exactly why I won't, Tenten. Tenten started poking at the blonde powerhouse. Come on, Naruto-chan. I just want to see what all the fuss is about. No, Tenten. Stop being so mean, Naruto-chan. I'm not being mean. I just don't want to do it. Don't want to do what? Neji asked. He squinted, fingers pinching the bridge of his nose as he attempted to staunch the headache following his monumental headache beatdown. Finally quelling the pounding in his head, the Hyuga cautiously opened his eyes, only to see his new top two scariest people looking back down at him. I'm going back to sleep. Oh, don't be that way, Neji. Is that any way to treat your best friend after not seeing her for so long? The bun-haired girl then pouted. And you didn't even write? I was dead, Neji said. That makes it pretty hard to write. Naruto died and he still keeps in touch. Tenten whined. Neji looked at the blonde boy who smiled back at him, albeit a little forcefully. Naruto isn't normal. Well, maybe you should just stop being normal, Tenten responded. As if such a thing was a feasible answer. She folded her arms, and turned her back on him as she pouted. The action would have been incredibly cute, if Neji didn't have the foreknowledge that his friend was actually in her late 20s early 30s. Deciding to divert the conversation, he turned to Naruto. You died? Oh yeah, Naruto responded. He did it so nonchalantly that Neji wondered if anything surprised his friends anymore. Kyuubi was drained from me during the war. It killed me. I met Grandpa Sage in limbo afterwards. Neji wanted to ask how Naruto was alive if he had died but thought better of it. If no one else was getting surprised by anything then he resolved not to be the only one that was. Oh, I see, Neji said. Naruto smiled. Yeah, I hear Sasuke died around the same time too. Gai-sensei died for a bit after he used the 8 gates as well, but they all got better. Neji, who was doing a great job of keeping his composure, guffawed. Oh, come on. Did everyone come back to life except me? I understand Sasuke. He pretty much shares the propensity for common sense that you do, but there is no way that Gai-sensei survived opening all 8 gates. It literally breaks your body and burns out your very soul. Oh yeah, Tenten chirped. Apparently she had stopped being angry. I heard about that. Didn't you grow his soul back? Neji's eyes were as wide as saucers as he looked back and forth between his two companions. Yeah, I did do that, didn't I? Naruto said while scratching the back of his neck. His smile was so wide it stretched his cheeks and closed his eyes. Wow. Neji stammered, trying to establish some sense of normalcy. For a while, the three were silent, until Naruto finally spoke up. You know, I don't really know. You don't know how you regrew someone's soul? Nope. Naruto chirped, his smile as bright as ever. Still don't. To be honest, I kinda forgot that I could. Neji gaped at the man he was sitting beside. Covertly, he switched seats with Tenten. Oh, Naru-chan. I get to sit next to you. Show me now. Tenten was absolutely beaming as she latched onto her future Hokage, her arms locking into place around the currently much smaller boy's ribs. Naruto's smile dimmed a bit as it became forced once more. No, Tenten. Stop asking me. Wait, Neji asked. What is she talking about? Naru-chan doesn't want to show me his special little thing, Tenten whined. The content of the statement, along with the way she hung off of Naruto, and the way she said it implied something far dirtier in nature. Instantly Neji's Byakugan activated. Naruto, what is she talking about? Regardless of the downright brutal beating he just suffered, he would not tolerate infidelity from any man towards his cousin, no matter who he was. Naruto noticed the sudden hostility, and raised his hands to ward off any ill intent. It's not what you're thinking, Neji. Naruto screamed. Tenten is just being an ass. Tell him, Tenten. Tenten pouted, holding onto the blonde ninja for just a bit longer before ruffling his hair. She enjoyed the younger boy's grunts of indignation for a bit before releasing him, plopping back down in the seat between Niji and Naruto. Niji, once more, covertly switched seats with her. You're no fun, Naruto, Tenten said, a small smile on her face. At least you're nice and mini-sized now. You're not as cute when you're all grown up. Naruto rolled his eyes, a more natural smile peeking through once more. Don't get used to it. I'm still the hard-assed 7th Hokage you all fear. Tenten put a finger to her chin, pretending to stare off into the distance, while she contemplated things. Though, did I fear you? I dunno. It's pretty hard to fear a man who wants me to save him from the wrath of a 15-year-old boy. Naruto laughed. I don't need any saving from this Hyuga. I just don't want your little boyfriend to get the wrong idea about us. Niji blushed a little at this, but said nothing as the two continued to ignore him. Niji, my boyfriend. Tenten giggled. She reached over and snagged a bit of his long, ebony locks, twirling them around her index finger. Nah, he's too young for me now. They don't age once they die, right? He's like 16 right now. I don't need to be dating boys. Niji felt a bit of relief at Tenten's statement, though a hollow, empty feeling rose up from his gut to take its place. Though Tenten mused, a mischievous smile on her face. When he grows up, maybe? Niji felt his embarrassment return tenfold as he did an impressive rendition of his younger female cousin. Both of his time-traveling compatriots shared a laugh at how red he had gotten, and Niji was forced to endure the situation as best he could. Too bad it only got worse. Are we laughing at the Hyuga? Cause I really need this right now, Sasuke said, his usual arrogant smile on his face as he landed from a high-speed movement in the row of seats behind the three. He took a seat in the vacant chair, though to be honest, he could have sat anywhere. There was no one seated for several rows around where Naruto sat. You don't sit near someone easily able to commit that kind of brutality. What did he do? This tea was all the Uchiha was able to get out before Tenten hooked her arm around the young boy's neck, and pulled him into a rather vicious headlock. The raven-haired boy tried to free himself. He really did. But as soon as he showed the slightest resistance, he felt a prick on the nape of his neck and his entire body went slack. To his credit, Sasuke showed no alarm at being paralyzed. Damn it. Let me go, Tenten. And why should I? The bun-haired girl asked. I've been back in the past for like 3 whole days, and I haven't even seen you once. How are you doing? Whoa. You know, Sasuke grunted. Burning villages, killing civilians, being paralyzed from the neck down. The usual. Neat. Tenten chirped. Sounds like a normal Saturday night. About, Sasuke admitted. Niji stared. Is this normal for you? It's so weird seeing you guys without your wives. Am I really the only woman here? Tenten asked. Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other, before shrugging. It's still up in the air on what Orochimaru is. You could be the only woman here. Or you could not be. Tenten shivered. Don't lump me in any category that Snake Bastard is in. I don't even want to know what he considers himself to be. Really? Sasuke asked in a moment of amazing social engagement. Not even a little bit. Tenten looked away. No, you're lying, Naruto said, smiling. Tenten sighed. I both do and I don't. Okay. It's curious to me, but it also disgusts me in a way that I cannot properly convey. Don't worry, a familiar, baritone voice said. I understand the sentiment. In the row in front of the assembled time travelers, a miasma of flame and foul chakra burst forth from nowhere, engulfing a single seat. Roiling and shifting, the fire, ash and smoke contorted itself to the form of a rather tall man, before cooling and showing an adult Naruto. He wore a red suit jacket, inlaid with gold buttons and black around the handcuffs and along the zipper. His pants were nice, solitary black, meshing well with the color of his suede shoes whose laces were tipped with gold. On his head he wore a black top hat with a red Uzumaki swirl, his whole ensemble complemented by a monocle. Sitting with one leg crossed, and his arms draped over the backs of the seats next to him, the fox turned, an action that seemed rather smooth had he been in the company of anyone else. With a graceful smile, the man sneered at the kids behind him, his canines showing through the action. How are you brats? Tota was as far as he got before he was scooped into another headlock by Tenten using her free arm. Foxy, the girl squealed. Oh, you're back, Kyuubi sighed. Good to see you again, Tenten. It's good to see you too, Foxy. How have you been? Oh, you know, the fox replied. Destroying villages, killing innocent civilians, eating people. The usual. Sounds like a Wednesday night. Tenten chirped. About, Kyuubi admitted. He stared over at the Uchiha that was sharing his fate and noticed how the boy was limp. You tried to struggle, didn't you? I didn't think she had those poisons in the past. Fair enough anyway, Niji said. It appeared that he would always be the person to keep the conversation And the sanity, on track. What were you saying about Naruto showing you something instantly? Both headlock boys' eyes widened, and despite their predicaments tried to escape somehow. Without using her hands, the weapons mistress pricked the two boys with poison, and ended their futile attempts at escape. You crazy woman, Sasuke screamed. Why are you still trying to get him to show you that? Tenten looked at the Uchiha as if he were stupid. Cause it's fun. It look, and you enjoy playing with fire, don't you girl? The Kyuubi asked. And knives, fire, and sharp things are my favorites. So to be fair, it's the same for the both of you as well. Sasuke and Kyuubi had the decency to look even slightly ashamed. Wait, I don't understand. What is she talking about? Sasuke grunted. Tenten wants to see something of which she has no comprehension. You make it sound so much more terrible than it is. Tenten pouted. Yeah, Naruto said. It's not that bad. It is, Kyuubi said. It's the worst thing ever. And she's crazy for wanting to see. Wait, Neji said. From the way you guys are talking, it sounds like she wants to see up. Tenten chirped. I want to see the talk no jutsu. Neji stared at her. He stared at the woman, and knew finally, for the first time, what true insanity was like. Dear gods, Kyuubi muttered. Why do all of you boys get attached to the crazies? Hey, Hinata's not that bad. Naruto defended his wife. Even though he knew that even now his future wife was probably stalking him. I didn't know how crazy Sakura was until recently, Sasuke said. He looked up at his own future wife sitting with her family some rows away. She was staring intensely at the match, but, as if feeling his gaze, looked away to meet his eyes. They locked gazes for what seemed like an eternity to Sasuke. Before, pink-haired girl smiled, before waving slightly. Overall, she seemed impossibly adorable, and nothing at all like the girl who owned a secret shrine in her home dedicated to him. I didn't know. The boy whimpered. Tenten patted his head through the headlock. Somehow I didn't know Tenten as crazy at all. Neji defended himself, before realizing what he had said. He turned red once more as all those in earshot shot a knowing grin his way. Tenten's eyebrow raised. And is that a problem? Neji, to his credit, didn't back down. Surprisingly, no good. Tenten smiled. Cause it only gets worse from here. Does that insanity translate to the bedroom? Neji asked, the words coming out before he could stop them. All those in attendance stared at the boy before the once girl laughed uproariously. Oh, you are gonna be fun. I missed you, Neji. Neji smiled. I missed you too. Tenten XXX feathers fell upon the stadium, covering both the audience and the arena in a jinjutsu meant to induce sleep. One by one both ninjas and civilians fell to the advanced technique, with only the hardiest and most experienced of warriors maintaining consciousness. This, of course, included the 6-time traveling ninja. Oh, this already? Sasuke asked. A smirk adorned his face as he deactivated the Chidori that was blazing in his palm. I wanted to have a little more fun with you, Sandrat said. Sandrat just scowled at the raven-haired boy. He had been beaten around mercilessly, even more mercilessly than that time he fought that weird spandex-wearing kid. How badly did Gaara want to release his mother here and now and lay waste to the fool who dared to hurt him? But not now. It was not time yet. He relented when his so-called siblings came to retrieve him. It's time to go, Gaara, Temari yelled to her youngest brother. Gaara paid her no heed, instead choosing to stare down the boy who had harmed him. Said boy simply stared back, that same infuriating smile on his face that haunted him during their entire fight plastered on his face. I will be back for you. Mother will taste your blood, Gaara said, his voice low and dangerous. Please, Jinchuruki, Sasuke replied. I have faced true demons, and your little sand puppy is far too small to scare me anymore. Lick your wounds, he said while placing his other hand in his pocket. For no matter how bad you think I am. Sasuke looked up in the stands. Naruto had made a beeline for Tenten, taking out every ninja in his path, be they friend or foe. He did so without a second thought, and seemingly without effort. There is something much worse coming for you. Gaara stared at the boy some more, trying to understand what the boy in front of him was trying to say. The Uchiha didn't seem like the type of person to admit anyone his equal, let alone his better, relishing the thought of someone even stronger than the Uchiha to feed to his mother. Gaara simply smiled as he let his siblings drag him away. Sasuke stared at the trio as they fled the quickly forming battlefield that was once a stadium, before rushing to his future wife's side. She may be insane, but she makes a wonderful heir. He wouldn't admit, even out loud, that he still found that he loved her. XXX get him, Hokages, keep him away from me, Orochimaru shouted, summoning the first 2 Hokages almost as soon as the barrier came up. Sarutobi did not look impressed. I see you need remedial lessons, my foolish student, the old man grunted. Orochimaru whimpered. XXX get fucked, you sand and sound fucks, Tenten shouted. She opened 2 scrolls, and a literal ocean of weaponry flooded out from them. Ahahahahahaha, Tenten cackled. She had buried both friend and foe underneath her onslaught. Where did you even get all of those weapons? Naruto asked. He landed next to her before she unleashed spiky, pointy hell on those below her. I brought it from the past with me. The weapon's mistress chirped. You can't bring anything from the past, Naruto said, tilting his head. Ah, was Tenten's sole response. The two then watched in silence as still more weapons came spewing out of the two scrolls. Those who weren't dead from Tenten's initial onslaught would find death hurtling their way now. So anyway, Naruto continued, completely ignoring the impossible thing that Tenten was currently doing. I need you to look at something for me. What is it? Narukana, Tenten asked. She tilted her head when Naruto pulled out a kunai, a rather dull one, at that, from his pocket. What's this, a special thing? Naruto said. I need you to look it over for me. What's so special about it? Tenten asked. She reached out to retrieve the weapon from her future leader. It looks like a normal knife to him. Tenten stared at the kunai she let fall to the floor, almost as soon as it touched her skin. I'm not touching that. What the hell is it? I'm not too sure, Naruto admitted, but you are going to help me forge it back to its for glory. Naruto, Tenten whispered. What is that? I don't know, Naruto repeated. He too looked down at the kunai that lay on the floor between them, although his face was much fonder as he did so. But I do know that me and the guys agreed on what to call it. And what is that? Tenten asked. She was a little creeped out as Naruto leaned forward, as if the name itself was something to be kept secret. The kunai, Naruto whispered. Once he was close enough, all at once the skies darkened, and thunder boomed overhead to herald the naming of the one weapon that should never have been given such a thing. Tenten, however, just looked at Naruto incredulously, before breaking out into laughter. Regardless of the ominous weather that miraculously happened, how original. Sasuke landed, his kunai crackling with unspent electricity in his, and before him, a loud thump could be heard as several hundred pounds of sand fell to the ground. It was lifeless now that it was cut off from its controller. Gaara hissed as his arm of sand was hacked off. Now partially transformed, half of his body was encased in the set, and so overlaid with black and blue symbols. The red-haired boy's partially transformed state served as his penultimate trump card, and was meant to be able to take down almost any threat. Any threat, of course, did not include Sasuke. Uchiha. How Gaara snarled. His eyes, one and one sandy gold, were as hot as a desert's heat as he stared down his opponent. How are you so strong? What manner of being proves your existence? Sasuke, not expecting the question, lifted his eyebrow. Excuse me, how are you so strong? Gaara screamed, unable to deal with being ignored. He wasn't used to the apathy the Uchiha was showing him. He was used to being feared. Well, Sasuke started, sheathing his blade. It was obvious that a weapon was overkill in this matchup. For starters, I did 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and lunges every day for 2 years. Sasuke immediately had to jump in order to avoid the sand wave that shot his way. It eroded the ground where he was standing, the pressure propelling the wave enough to leave a gouge in the dirt. Landing on a tree branch some distance away, Sasuke grunted at Sand Ninja. Well, that's just rude. Quit messing with me, Uchiha, Gaara screamed. I want to know how you're so strong. Do you really want to know? Sasuke asked. Gaara nodded vehemently. Jumping back to the ground, Sasuke made his way back over to the unstable Jinchuriki, leaning close, an act that any onlooker not acquainted with the boy would call suicidal. Sasuke whispered into the boy's ear. Lots of juice. Sasuke laughed as he was forced to jump away once more. XXX. Kankuro stared down the bug boy before him, an impressively smug smirk in his face. You're going down. No tree hugger is going to beat me, he yelled. With a twitch of his fingers, his puppets, Karasu and Crow, emerged from the foliage around them, clacking and clicking as their robotic parts moved erratically. Shino, his face mostly hidden by the overly large hem of his jacket and pitch-black sunglasses, seemed to be staring at his foe devoid of emotion or want, though he could also be staring completely past the Sand Ninja and not paying any attention at all. It was hard to tell with an Aburame. Nothing to say? Kankuro asked, his smirk widening. Have I scared you so badly that you've already given up again? Shino said nothing to the verbal taunts, instead opting to stand impassively and watch as things turned out. Well, Kankuro started, his voice not as confident as before. The boy was unnerving, and that sentiment came from a person who used mechanized dolls as weapons. If you're not going to say anything, I think I'll just take care of you myself. And with a flick of his wrist, his doll weapons sprung forth, as though carried by invisible strings. They made it pretty far, to be honest. Blades splayed out before them. They came mere inches from skewering the bug child, before losing all momentum and falling to the forest floor below. What? Kankuro asked, surprised. Shino, who had by this point remained completely silent, decided now was his time to speak. You've already lost, were his only words. Kankuro only had a moment to dissect them before a cloud of tiny black bugs swallowed him. His screams lasted but a few seconds before the insects drained him of his chakra completely. Having had their lunch, they receded from their prey, before flowing like a large, creepy river into the arms of Shino's outstretched coat. Once they were reclaimed, Shino simply adjusted his glasses. Need more, were his only words to assess his rather cannibalistic deconstruction of his enemy. Looking around, For the nearest chakra source, he sensed an enormous one in the direction his fellow leaf ninja fled to. His bugs warned him away from that source, as it seemed to taste decidedly insane. Turning, Shino sensed another source of chakra barreling his way at high speeds. This one was more familiar, seeming to belong to another one of his fellow leaf ninja, bright, burning, and full of energy. Naruto Uzumaki's chakra was as visible as the sun. His bugs also warned him away from that source, as it seemed to taste decidedly insane. So obviously, the only course of action available to the boy was to go join in the war efforts, because a full-scale war was probably the safest of the three bets. Shino wouldn't know it, but he had made the best possible choice. XXX Tenten stared at the giant purple barrier that encased the third Hokage, and Orochimaru in what was no doubt an epic brawl. Translucent and almost ethereal, the barrier roiled as if it were made of glass, and inlaid with gas, a thing of beauty. Tenten almost felt bad at her need to tear the thing down. Then she remembered it was a barrier created by Orochimaru, and suddenly all of her reservations had fled. Time to get to work, she sighed, pulling out a scroll. Tenten reared back, before using all of her strength to toss the rolled-up parchment into the air in response to a hand sign. The scroll unfurled, showing an intricate array of seals and designs that promptly exploded, showering the barrier with countless projectiles. The Anbu that stood outside the barrier recoiled in shock, their emotions apparent on their faces, even through their full face masks. Somehow what? How? A cat-masked Anbu intelligently asked, breaking the facade of stoicness they were known for. Tenten turned to said Anbu, and smiled, putting up a peace sign. Honestly, I'm really not quite sure. I'd never had that many weapons when I was this age. What? A different Anbu asked, as apparently they only had enough time between them for one person to be out of shock at a time. An endless downpour of metal was still falling from the tiny scroll, making a veritable curtain of death above the barrier as thick as the purple construct was wide, hammering into the top of it. The hail of weapons contacted the barrier, and then disintegrated, before making way for the weapons just behind them. What did you say? Tenten asked, barely breaking eye contact with her beautiful technique. Really, there was nothing that excited her more than seeing weapons fly. It was really such a shame that the barrier destroyed them as soon as they hit. Any weapon, no matter how unremarkable, deserved a chance to be used. Tenten then shrugged. Oh well, at least she had no idea where these weapons came from. Another Anbu sputtered. Apparently they were too mesmerized by her display to really care about her lackadaisical response to their question. Tenten smiled. Everything was going to plan. Hey fucker, a loud and rather obnoxious voice called out. Initially Tenten ignored it, but after a couple of seconds of being addressed as a rather colorful amount of swears, Tenten finally gave in. What? Asked. The voice seemed to be coming from inside the barrier, so that is where she looked. For a while she saw nothing, then the cursing continued. I'm over here, you bun-haired bimbo, a girl called from one of the corners of the barrier, arms outstretched and palms facing outwards. Yunoichi appeared to be supplying the purple construct with chakra. Overall, she looked rather tomboyish, if not exceedingly young. Her glare, however, was completely matured. If it's not too much trouble, would you mind fucking off? Tenten tilted her head. Well, you're a delightful one. Really, huh? The redhead asked. The sneer on her face actually hurt Tenten physically. Well, I'll be certain to forward that to our HR department. You have an HR department? Tenten asked. We don't even have an HR department. Oh yeah, the Kunoichi said, drawing out her word. Expansive thing. Really, it's a shame their responses are always the same. And what are their responses? Well, usually it consists of the phrases go fuck and yourself, knock it off, you leaf bimbo. Tenten, in response, simply stared at the girl. The girl too was surrounded in the purple glassy mist of the barrier, so Tenten doubted that she could just hurt the girl. That didn't mean she couldn't try though. Hey, what the fuck are you doing? The girl asked. The part of the barrier that surrounded her had pinged, but soon returned to normal. Tenten shrugged while careless, tossing the mace she was holding up and down in the air. What's it look like I'm throwing stuff at you? No shit, Sherlock. The girl snarled. Why? Cause it's fun. Tenten asked. It's stupid, like you that don't do shit to this berry gah. Stop it, you leaf bimbo. Tenten had thrown pace at the girl while she was talking. It was sudden and unexpected, but like the girl said, completely ineffectual. First off, Tenten started pulling another weapon from somewhere. This time it was a scythe. My name isn't leaf bimbo or bun-haired bimbo or any variation of the word. I'm Tenten, and I'm the future weapon mistress of Konoha. Oh yeah, well I'm Teiwaya, the future mistress of sticking my flute up your fuck. Tenten had thrown the scythe, hitting the barrier suddenly. Teiwaya didn't even see the weapon fly through the air 1 second, in the bun-haired girl's hands, and in the next her barrier was pinging and distorting, a clear sign of a massive impact to the thing. Bad sound. Ninja, I know you're not very smart, but you're going to have to work with me here. Tenten's voice was almost a coo, soft and slow, and like one would use when talking to a baby. Now say it with me. Tenten It's not hard, go fuck your tent and grimaced as two pings went off, one on either side of her. Would you stop? It's pissing me off. Say my name then. Tenten coot, I know you can, you'll be the first to die, Teiwaya snarled. Before pings blared around her, XXX Sakura had been having a weird day, well, a weird couple of months, really, but when things this weird start happening to you all at once, you tend to allow the time in between the weird occurrences to just blur together. So really, for her this was all just a really long day, and it culminated in a gigantic sand rat over 3 times the size of her house staring down at her. I'm gonna fuck you all, the giant sand rat screamed. Sasuke, her Sasuke, just stared up at it as if it were a bird, or a leaf, something inconsequential. I somehow doubt that you meant fuck us all up, her Sasuke drawled, sounding every bit as bored as he looked. The sneer the giant sand rat sent her way seemed to confirm his suspicions. Glorious, and how exactly are you going to do that with my giant sand dick? The creature roared. Sakura could see no such appendage on it, but decided that discretion was the better part of valor. I think that it's a little big, Sasuke said, apparently not fussed by the conversation he was having. Why don't we start a little smaller? That might kill us. That's the entire point, the sand creature roared. Lovely, Sasuke drawled. He was paying attention to his nails now. More specifically, he was paying attention to the nails on his right hand, and only his right hand. He had taken to stuffing his other hand in his pocket, and all but ignoring it, as if its very existence somehow insulted him. Speaking of which, that wasn't the weirdest thing about him either. Sasuke had also taken to using techniques she was almost sure he didn't know, from terrifying, unholy black fire, to surges of encompassing, blinding electricity. The Uchiha was an elemental powerhouse with no signs of slowing down. If anything, he seemed to be getting stronger with every passing day, to the point that Sakura was sure that the only thing keeping him back from challenging Kakashi was Naruto of all people, and that Sasuke deferred to Naruto of all people was another terrifying thing. Really, the amount of terrifying things happening to her was way more prevalent than the amount of weird things happening to her, and that in itself was terrifying. In the last 3 months, Sakura had faced down no less than 3 S-class psychopaths, trained with 2 other psychopaths she had called her teammates, one of which was in a coma for some time for some reason, and been in the center of more hypercharged explosions than some war veterans, and now she was here, pinned to a tree, and watching as her coma-recovered psychopath love interest stared down one of the 9 most terrifying things to ever grace their world, as if it were a worm. Said worm was doing its best to follow through on sodomizing them with an appendage it did not have. Sakura didn't even note the gigantic wave of sand as it rushed its way towards her. She simply closed her eyes and let the light breeze float over her. She didn't need to see in order to know that Sasuke had cut the sand with a lightning-covered hand. Even if her eyes were open, she wouldn't have seen him do it. He was simply that fast. Speaking of which, he was simply that fast. Seriously, how the hell had he gotten so much stronger without her realizing it? Sure, he was always stronger than her by some margin back in the academy, but it was a gap she was aware of now. He was so far ahead of her that Sakura couldn't even fathom the distance between their skill levels. The boy had been in a freaking coma the instant they left the academy. He didn't have the time to reach that level of strength without her knowledge, and trust her, nothing Sasuke ever did escaped her knowledge. Nothing. Watching Sasuke's subconscious shiver brought a shameful glee to Sakura's heart, which was good, cause the sand was squeezing that part of her anatomy rather hard into the tree. Speaking of, not that I'm not, Sakura was forced to stop here as Sasuke had shot a fireball bigger than the hulking sand monster. It said, sand monster, positively wooed at your attempts at protecting me. But she stopped again as lightning fused sand into chaos, and the one-tailed beast's arm fell to the ground, sending tons of dust, dirt, sand and debris everywhere. The ground shook with the impact of the appendage, and the skies themselves parted with the pained howls of the great beast. Sasuke looked slightly less bored. Would you mind saving me from the sand? Sakura asked. Her Uchiha future baby daddy simply raised an eyebrow, but did not turn to look at her. Nope, sorry, can't, was all that he said. Sakura, for her part, didn't even blink at the blasé answer. And why can't you? She asked. Naruto supposed to was his answer. Sakura still did not give in. And why can you not? She asked again. Sasuke shrugged his shoulders. Cause reasons. And then the conversation died. They stood there in silence as they waited. Shukaku roared in distance, the very action uprooting trees and blasting away layers of dirt, and then silence. Once more silence reigned as the two rested in their differing resting places. It was not the scene Naruto was expecting to return to. Hey guys, Naruto was confused. What's going on here? Sasuke pointed to the one-tailed beast. Kill it. Naruto looked up at the hulking beast. Quite simply, it laid in pieces. Even as he arrived, Sasuke had cut off more and more of its body to the point it was more or less just a giant sand head. That was the size of a house. I think you got this, Naruto said. Sasuke just sucked his teeth. No, I don't. You're supposed to have this. I learned my lesson. Now go do whatever it is that you did last time. Naruto looked at the one-tailed beast's head. It was trying to reassemble its body, but the ridiculous amounts of ambient lightning chakra made it difficult for it to control itself. I think Gamabunta is a bit of an overkill, Naruto said offhandedly. Sasuke rolled his eyes. Listen, bring out your stupid toad thing and get this over with. Naruto bristled. My stupid toad thing is the best summon in the land right now, so I'd appreciate it if you learned proper respect. Sasuke scoffed. Toads better than snakes. Get real. What are you gonna do, lick me to death? Just might, Naruto screamed, jumping back. He started to gather an insane amount of chakra. Only problem was that he was facing Sasuke, not the one-tailed beast. Just what I was hoping for, Sasuke screamed in retaliation. He jumped back as well, going through the same motions. Chakra positively saturated the air as the two young powerhouses prepared to summon their strongest allies. I'm gonna hate this, Sakura groaned. She wasn't wrong. XXX, I'm so sorry, sensei, Orochimaru screamed as he dodged several dozen elemental attacks of varying natures, ducking with snake-like agility. Honed years in the making, Orochimaru successfully allowed a wave of water, not wind, to cut into the tree bark behind his head. Oh, you will be Saratobi Hiruzen sighed. The aged Hokage sat where he was on a slightly elevated part of a branch, rubbing at his back. The third seemed to almost not be taking the battle seriously. His several shadow clones, however, were. I've learned my lesson, sensei. Call off your shadow clones. I will as soon as you call off my former teachers. Hiruzen turned to said teachers, both of which were encased in domes of ash. How are you, by the way? How is the afterlife treating you? Can't complain. The women are simply heavenly. The first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, replied. Period. Only his face was visible, as the rest of his body was covered completely in ash that moved in very specific ceiling arrays. Regardless, his facial features were more than what was necessary to convey his mirthful expression. His eyebrows wiggled rapidly. That pun was terrible. Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage, snapped. He was in a similar situation to his brother, up to his neck in ceiling ash. Unlike his brother, however, his face was set in scowl. We weren't even in heaven. Period. So there were girls there, Hashirama retorted, his smile splitting his cracked face. Even though his eyes were darkened with the effects of the reanimation technique he was currently being controlled by, they still relayed the endless glee the man found at every passing moment. Tobirama, the more sensible of the two brothers, just sighed, already weary of his siblings' way too happy expression. And what if I told Mito of this? Instantly, the first Hokage's smile vanished, replaced with a concerned and almost fearful frown. Don't tell Mito you won't get off the hook either, Tobirama sputtered, his stoic face faltering immediately. Why am I at fault as well? I have committed no crime. You know how Mito is, Hashirama deadpanned. You were there, so you're also at fault? Or do you think you can overpower her? Tobirama wore a look that very clearly said yes, I could. It was really too bad that Hashirama wore a look that said you better not know. Tobirama relented with a sigh. No, I don't think I could. Very nice, Hashirama all but shouted. So we're not telling anyone anything? Everyone in the clearing shook their heads, with the exception of Orochimaru, who had to completely bend his head backwards to avoid it being severed by a wave of rock. Rock isn't even the element for cutting, Orochimaru yelled, his scientific, fact-driven mind managed to scream through panicked screams. The third Hokage sucked his teeth. You always lacked imagination, my dear student. It appears I have to teach you that as well. Wait, how do you teach imagina? Orochimaru was really happy he slipped on that leaf as the wave of mud sailed over his face and cut a tree behind him into ribbons. XXX. So nothing about this is normal, Asuma said, the statement coming out more as a question, as the older and more experienced of the two surviving ninja in the immediate area. Such was his shock that he was asking his own student for confirmation. An explosion sounded somewhere in the general direction they were looking. Apparently more was happening than they could see. What they could see, however, was a giant snake and a giant frog battling each other to the death. No, Shikamaru sighed, the words falling out of his mouth as if there was no better way for them to come, unless they learn the ability to summon in the month or so since the tournament. Then I highly doubt this is normal for them. But then, Asuma started, only to stop as an altercation from the two giant combatants nearly knocked him off his feet. The giant snake dodged a sword slash from the frog, only to attempt to coil around the frog, binding its arms together, unhinging its jaw. The snake attempted to swallow the frog whole, only for a gigantic ball of royal chakra to appear from nowhere and wrench its jaw even further open. Apparently not ready for the counter, the snake could only fall back, stunned. But then Asuma tried to start again, only to be interrupted when the frog stomped its foot on the downed snake's body, creating another earthquake that upset the balance. Lifting its sword in the air, the frog attempted to cut down its purple enemy, only to be engulfed in black flames. What? No, sensei, Shikamaru drawled, "There's no sense in even trying to make sense of this." Asuma could only gape. If Nara said that there was no making sense of this, then there probably wasn't. XXX Naruto and Sasuke fell, their summons disappearing in gigantic plumes of smoke, both touching down on tree branches. The two young warriors glared at each other across the gap between their perches. See, Naruto asked, "I told you that toads were better." In return, Sasuke glared, his Sharingan eyes flared, the kaleidoscope pattern spinning ominously. Not for the first time had the raven-haired Neo boy wanted nothing more than to trap Naruto and his Tsukiyomi. For the rest time he'd probably die doing it. But it was worth it in the long run. But then Sasuke realized something: he literally couldn't use his Sharingan on Naruto anymore, even foregoing the fact that Sasuke doubted that even he'd survive spending that much time with Naruto, and he could mute the blonde in his Tsukiyomi world. But even before that, the damned Uzumaki had that technique. Sasuke wasn't sure how talk no jutsu worked when the man couldn't even talk, but he'd personally seen the boy stare down an enemy before convincing said enemy to his side with his mouth shut by a jutsu. So like every other time, he was tempted. Sasuke did the most effective thing he could. He grunted and turned around before walking away. This had the profound effect of pissing Naruto off. "Hey bastard, get back here," Naruto called, and for all of his profound speed, the orange-clad boy ran after the Uchiha at little more than civilian speed. Sasuke was about to ignore the boy harder, a feat that he was pretty sure an Uchiha exclusive feat, when Gaara decided to make himself known. Once more. "How are you so strong?" Gaara gasped from the floor of the forest. The boy was lying in a pool of his own fallen sand, barely able to pick himself off the ground despite his apparent fatigue. However, he still had it in him to glare angrily at his Jinchuriki. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Apparently, at some point in their summon battle, either Gamabunta or the snake boss had awoken Gaara, ending the transformation. It wasn't exactly how it had gone last time, but technically Naruto had awoken Gaara using Gamabunta. So maybe that was enough. "How many people have you killed to prove your existence?" Gaara asked. Sasuke idly wondered if Naruto had killed anyone at all on purpose. "How many should I?" Naruto, in his infinite wisdom and leadership qualities, didn't even look back. As you don't need to kill people to prove yourself. You have your family right there. You've always had them. They'll love you. And apparently that was enough, because shortly after Naruto had finished, the two Sand siblings appeared to haul their youngest brother away. At that point it was hard not to notice the look of unashamed on Gaara's face. It was gone as soon as it came, however, for Kankuro and Temari. Had the boy gone in the very next moment, what was hard to notice was the look in Naruto's eyes as he caught up to Sasuke. In the future, Naruto's hair was always cut short, almost to the scalp, so that his eyes could always show they were strong, tempered in hardships, and a burning determination to always succeed, but also impossibly gentle with the love for his own. Now however, Naruto's hair was much longer. Spiky bangs covered the boy's eyes easily, and for someone like Sasuke, who had had so much experience reading the blonde Hokage, the hidden facets there were clear as day. The last Uchiha reached out to grasp his counterpart's shoulder. Naruto barreled past him without a word. "Let's go." Sasuke, his Hokage said. The command was evident, and long has it been since Sasuke had ignored an order. This was one such rare occasion. "Naruto, what's wrong?" I said. "Let's go." Sasuke. Naruto's voice was stern, and the raven-haired Avenger was forced into silence. Ugging, he simply followed his commander, but made a silent vow that he eventually decided to say aloud, "You'll tell me eventually. Just because you're the only one who can use that infernal technique doesn't mean that the rest of us can't just talk." In response, Naruto just grunted. It was a cold day in hell when Naruto decided to take a cue from Sasuke for emotional responses. Up in the trees, Sakura was looking down at her two teammates in unmasked curiosity if she needed any more confirmation on her love's deference to their blonde teammate. There it was, an outright command followed up by a stern reaffirmation. Naruto was definitely the one running the shots here. But why? Sakura asked. As far as she could remember, the one leading the pack was always Naruto. What changed? Using all of the stealth that was available to her, a red dress wearing pink-haired young girl, Sakura followed her team via the treetops above them. Something wasn't right here, and she would have to figure out what. XXX Hinata was never a shy person. Oh sure, she seemed shy to your average viewer, but to those particularly ninja-like observers who could look underneath the underneath, one could note that Hinata was just really socially awkward. Now those two character traits usually melded together, as one usually induced the other, but such was not the case for Hinata Hyuga, heiress of the Hyuga clan and future matriarch of the Uzumaki clan. Hinata wanted nothing more than to make friends, be social, and pursue the one true prize that the rest of Konoha so foolishly overlooked. Hinata wanted nothing more than tackle Glomp Naruto to the ground and proclaim him hers, and only hers forever. And she would do it too, if only she knew how to without seeming a social pariah. and it's not even like Naruto would even particularly be offended by it. The boy so positively radiated acceptance that Hinata was sure that she could stick a hole through his chest and he would still be adamant about being friends. And speaking of sticking things into holes, Hinata was particularly excited by the thought of them doing that activity alone together. The problem with any of that, however, was that Hinata still had an image to maintain. She couldn't very well go around making any friends if everyone thought that she was some kind of weirdo. It just wouldn't do. So Hinata settled for letting people think she was just quiet and shy. People never thought badly of the quiet and shy people. Except for Naruto, of course. Figures that the one person she needed acceptance from would find her safe social path to be weird. In the efforts of preserving that hopefully more than friendship, Hinata decided to steer well clear of Naruto for now, at least until she could properly approach him without climbing up. That plan, however, changed really quickly. A disaster of monumental proportions had struck Konoha, and Hinata wasn't entirely sure how to react. She knew that something like this would happen sometime. I mean, it was bound to happen sometime. She just didn't think it would happen so soon. Another girl had noticed Naruto. Oh, and a war was happening. But that could be handled at a later time. Wars come and go, but there was only one Naruto to sink her teeth into. And that was a treat that Hinata Hyuga wasn't willing to share. As the Hyuga heiress approached the bun-haired girl that dared attach herself to her future baby daddy, the only thought that ran through the girl's mind was, it really is convenient that she has all these weapons around. XXX Tenten is one of the most skilled ninjas in the Hidden Leaf Village. That is an undeniable fact. Whereas most ninjas waste their time learning to shatter continents with their bare hands, or otherworldly stupid ninja magic stuff, Tenten did the one practical thing, and trained with weapons. She trained with the things until her skill with the things reached a point where she could be called a weapons mistress, at 14 years old. And she only improved from there. By the time she was a fully grown adult with her own shop to adult in, Tenten was so renowned with her weapons that most people put away theirs when fighting her in the fear that the tools would cower before their true master. Tenten was one of the Hidden Leaf's best ninjas, and it was for that reason that even she knew who to cow to. Naruto was an easy one. The boy was nigh invulnerable to all but the strongest attacks, and even those barely even fazed him, as with the addition of Kurama's chakra and Hashirama's cells, not to mention his ability to regrow souls, Naruto could simply recover from anything that dared harm them. And then the boy was crafty enough to come up with 8 different ways to cut down the idiot that attacked him. Sasuke was another easy one. Even not speaking on the boy's own accomplishments, the Uchiha was mad enough to be best friends with someone like Naruto. Even if it was by force, you don't mess with someone who can't handle that level of madness. Finally, the last easy one was Sakura Uchiha. Insanity of that level speaks for itself. Never mind that she was the third of the second generation of Sannin. Sakura Uchiha was a good friend, an even better mother, and totally, criminally, batshit insane. There were just some people you didn't mess with. Those were the easy ones. A not so easy one, however, was one Hinata Uzumaki. Hinata was an interesting one, to say the least. To be honest, Tenten was never really sure why exactly she was always so afraid of the blue-haired beauty. And then it hit her ironically on the day of the shy girl's wedding. Up there, at the altar, as Hinata stared lovingly into the eyes of her long-sought-after almost husband, Naruto was simply rubbing his hand on the back of his head in a nervous habit that he had since he was a child. In truth, it was an action that was incredibly cute. It was cute, adorable, in every sense of the word, and how it was just so Naruto. People had gotten used to it, and no one really had it in them to tell the boy to stop. Hinata had it in her to tell him to stop. A serene smile on her face, the soon-to-be Uzumaki bride said the one word, and the strongest man in the elemental nations acceded to her order. Tenten figured out all at once why she feared Hinata. She could cow Naruto of all people, who would not back down even before a god. You bend knee before your master's master. Tenten did the very same. So you could imagine the young weapon master's fear when she heard the young heiress's voice echo through the air like a reaper's sigh. It was, horrifyingly enough, the same tone the girl would one day use to mollify her future husband in front of the most powerful people in the world. I would like to speak with you, Miss Tenten. Tenten, at that moment, respected Naruto more than anything else in the world. That he had managed to remain standing even when faced with a sound so chilling only cemented why he was chosen to be Hokage. How the Shikaku fight almost went. Stop it. Gaara snarled as Sasuke severed his gigantic arm of sand once more. With the ease of a person cutting through paper, the Uchiha used his Chidori to saw off the monstrous sand appendages that Gaara kept creating. And why would I do that? Sasuke asked, an eyebrow raised, and left hand placed firmly in his pocket. Gaara tried to reform his arm in the time it took the boy to ask the question, only to have it severed once more. So I can kill you? Gaara snarled. Saliva dripped from his open mouth as his manic, heterochrome eyes glared down his opponent. Said opponent simply rolled their eyes, charcoal black as they were. That doesn't seem like something that I want. Sasuke then sliced off Gaara's tail, as no one in the clearing even saw the boy move from his place on a completely different tree branch. This was impressive. It also doesn't seem like something you can do. I will murder you, Gaara said, his left eye now fully golden and slit. Sasuke rolled his eyes once more. MHM, and I'm the fourth Hokage. Naruto, unfortunately, arrived in the clearing at that exact moment. Upon hearing the comment, he turned to his raven-haired compatriot and smiled. Oh, is that so, Sasuke? Should I be calling you daddy now? Sasuke scowled. Though it wasn't as bad as it usually was. You know that you're the reason why everyone thinks we're gay for each other, right? Naruto shrugged. I don't care what they think. No one can actually do anything to me, and I've already got the girl of my dreams. If I want to flirt with my best friend then I will. Sasuke, for the third time in 5 minutes, rolled his eyes. I'd rather you didn't. Oh yeah? Naruto asked. What are you gonna do about it? Ground me dad. Sasuke smirked. Though, maybe, bad boys do need to be punished. Sakura, who was being held to a tree, by sand that even now was being severed every time it formed, promptly got a nosebleed, and fainted. Both boys felt relieved. Thank the gods, Sasuke sighed. I thought we'd never get her to pass out. We were getting her to pass out, Naruto asked. Oh right, of course. Sasuke stared at his commander. Kakashi told you to stop flirting with me all the time. It's sexual harassment. Oh shut it, you like it? Sasuke's smirk was all the answer he needed. Besides, I spent all that time hunting you down. I think I deserve a little loving. Sasuke simply rolled his eyes once more. Seeing that the Uchiha was done with the conversation, Naruto turned to the other person among them. Hey Gaara, said Sand Ninja winced at the brightness in Naruto's smile. It took him a while to compose himself, but when he did, he snarled at the newcomer. Who are you? Will you be able to prove my existence? Naruto snorted. Nobody can do that but yourself, buddy. Not even your mother. Gaara snarled even more. You would dare disrespect mother? Yeah buddy, I dare. Then Naruto promptly knocked the future Kazekage out. Normally this would be a fair, even humane, tactic as far as shinobi went, but for this particular ninja such an action was a death wish. I'm free. Shukaku, the one-tailed beast hidden away inside of Gaara, roared as he gained full control of his host's body. Now that Gaara was asleep, his seal was just weak enough to allow the Shukaku the ability to roam free. The sand beast wasted no time in assembling his true form, and sand from seemingly nowhere swirled around Gaara's body until a giant raccoon-like beast towered over even the tallest of Konoha's trees. Konoha's trees were about 7 stories tall. It's dinner time. Shukaku bellowed, his golden slit eyes sizing up the adolescent children before him like particularly tasty treats. Said treats were not impressed. This was the Ichibi. This is what we were afraid of when we were little. Sasuke was disappointed, if his droopy eyes and deadpan expression was anything to go by. He seemed so much bigger and deadlier. I remember him having more spikes. I remember several heads, Naruto added. And I don't know why Buddy was on fire. I remember that too, Sasuke said, nodding his head vigorously. Why isn't this one on fire? Do you want to make it on fire? Naruto asked. Sasuke's grin was predatory. Oh please yes. It's time to what? Shukaku was stunned as his right arm was suddenly engulfed in white-hot flames. He hadn't seen anything alight him, nor felt a fire growing. 1 second his arm was okay, the next it was just completely engulfed in flame. Smaller than your normal fires, Naruto commented. Sasuke shrugged. I wanted to enjoy myself. Burning everything to ashes within seconds gets boring. Never thought I'd live to hear those words. Shukaku was understandably confused. Wait, what's going on here? The grains of sand in his arm were starting to fuse to make glass. Also his right arm was now on fire. No seriously. I don't understand. What's going on here? I'm burning you to death. Sasuke yelled. Shukaku looked around for the source of the voice. He looked down at the ant-like humans before him, and dismissed them from being the creature capable of burning him so thoroughly. He looked elsewhere. Did that son of a bitch just ignore me? Sasuke asked. He was puffed up. Obviously annoyed. You know I think he did, Naruto answered. I'm gonna electrocute him. Sasuke yelled, then jumped straight towards the behemoth. Naruto, the admittedly less intelligent of the two, considered telling his friend that he was trying to electrocute a giant creature made purely of non-conductive sediments, but decided to let this play out. He'd seen less probable things. I mean, there was that one time, he went back in time. Well, not this time, he went back in time, but that other one. Die you sand bastard! Sasuke yelled. He leaped off the nearest, tallest tree he could find, and headed straight for the sand beast's chest. A human bullet, Sasuke soared through the air, the beginnings of his Chidori blazing in his palm. The Shukaku heard the screeching of 1,000 birds, and briefly his attention turned back towards a tiny, insignificant speck currently flying towards him with some sort of death wish. Of course, the one-tailed beast paid such a thing no mind, and went back to looking for the thing that set him on fire. So it was to Shukaku's surprise that the small insignificant speck managed to blow a hole through his gut several hundred yards bigger than it actually was. Why are things not making sense? Shukaku roared. It attempted to reform, but every time it came close, the Uchiha would pass through, and somehow blow another hole in it. Stop that! Sasuke didn't respond, but his cocky smirk was visible to everyone. Yellow chakra and swirling sand spun in midair around the Kune, glowing with the blue glyphs commonly found on the one-tailed beast, the monster known as Shukaku. The blade hummed with a fraction of the power it once had at its prime. At some point, Naruto thought he would be fascinated by the phenomena going on before him. This was a weapon that had somehow gained sentience, and a chakra network, and eagerly ate up tailed beast chakra, as if it were its own. Now however Naruto just felt empty. It's not sticking, a familiar, if stoic voice said from behind him. Once more Naruto found himself sitting on the old water tank on top of some random Konoha building. His shorter legs dangled in the wind as he sat on the edge, and somehow, without looking, Naruto knew that Sasuke was sitting in the same way on the other side of the tank. Why did it stick the first time, but not this time? Naruto sighed. He turned the Kune over and over, watching as the sand swirled around the blade as the Shukaku's chakra slowly bled off of it. Had the chakra bound itself properly, the energy would be encased within. As it was now Naruto only had enough time to steal some chakra from the residual left behind from Gaara's transformation. This wasn't right. I don't know, Naruto said finally. I think it might be because last time I had pumped all 9 chakras into it at once. Maybe they reach some sort of harmony when they're together or something. I dunno. Sasuke grunted. In true Uchiha fashion he said nothing else, and for a time the wind was the only sound between them. Usually Naruto was the one to break the silence, his hyperactive mind not comprehending the concept of silence, as if its very existence baffled him. Sasuke found himself breaking the silence this time. Isn't this why you got Tenten to help? Naruto sighed, letting out what seemed to be weeks of exhaustion. Yes, he admitted. I had a feeling that the chakras wouldn't simply bind with the blade again. The blonde twirled the blade in his hand once more. Tenten knows all about binding chakra to weapons though. She can get the chakra to work, even if just for a bit, until I can get the rest of the tailed beast to lend me some energy. The roof then fell back into silence. Not even the streets below the 2 future heroes made a sound. Most villagers and ninjas were off lamenting the loss of the 3rd Hokage, and as such most of the Hidden Leaf village was a veritable ghost town. Eventually Sasuke had enough. Okay, I'm tired of this. Naruto finally looked up when the boy behind him made to stand. Tired of what? Exactly. This, Sasuke said, waving his hand at his blonde best friend. You. Everything, and all this. What you're doing. What you're not doing. I'm tired of all of this. Naruto was at a loss. Excuse me? You're moping around, Sasuke continued. That's not you. That's not who you are. Either stop doing that, or tell me what's wrong. Sasuke placed his hand on his hip. It's your choice. I'm not quite following, Naruto said slowly, golden brows furrowing. Are you concerned for me? Sasuke huffed. You know damn well that I am. Now are you going to tell me what's wrong? In a sec. I have to process this. I never thought this day would come. I have to tell everyone. Naruto pulled out a phone. Sasuke electrocuted it. I don't even know where you got that, Sasuke said, his outstretched hand crackling with electricity. Phones aren't invented yet. Tenten, was all Naruto said. Sasuke's mouth hung open. After a minute he regained his senses. How the hell does she bring things back from the future? Naruto shrugged before standing up. I stopped asking Tenten questions a long time ago. Was it around the time she started trying to cut Lee's hair? Only to realize that the power of youth resists all forms of damage, even in body hair. Naruto shook his head. As he did so a small aura of wind started to whip up around him. No. It was around the time that she started trying to weaponize playing cards. Didn't she succeed? Sasuke asked. The wind circulating Naruto had started to turn into veritable blades, cutting at everything within reach. Sasuke started to bat errant blades away with his charged hand. She did, Naruto responded. The blonde jumped down from the water tank, and onto the roof the container was sitting on. Turning, he stared at his raven-haired friend. I'd rather not talk about it. It'll only remind me of the toast. Did she complete the toast throwing stars? Sasuke asked. Eyebrow quirked. Last time I was in the village, it was only in beta stage. Naruto shook his head. A Rasengan started to form in his hand, the wind started to funnel into the orb, and a piercing, screeching noise started to reverberate through the area. She finished the shuri toast a while ago? I'm talking about the Kyune toast. Dear gods, Sasuke whispered, sounding genuinely shocked. The mad woman. Indeed, Naruto responded. Above him, the boy could see his rival's acknowledged arm engulfed in flame, before the electricity burst through the pitch blackness once more. Hey Sasuke, I'll be honest, I don't think you have the mental capacity to lie. Sasuke responded. He was rewarded for that comment with a particularly precise blade of wind almost gouging his eyes out. Go on, I know it was forever ago. Naruto started, his voice starting to fall into the breeze that was roiling into his attack. But now it's going to be tomorrow as well, you know? Sasuke didn't know. To be honest, nothing Naruto usually said made any sense. The blonde liked to think that he was making a point, but more often than not Naruto would just string together words in the hopes that they would fall into a sentence eventually. Naruto literally threw words at a wall, and waited to see what stuck, so it's hard to blame the little idiot for his social ineptitude. He was barely schooled, after all. That being said, it is also hard to blame Sasuke for his inability to understand. Instead, Sasuke did what he did best. Sasuke bent his legs before pushing off the water tower with everything he had. The electricity and fire broke apart and disintegrated everything around him as he flew towards his rival. Naruto, his Rasenshuriken finally charged, simply met his partner's advance. Pushing off the roof, Naruto let tiles and gate wire alike get torn apart on a cellular level as he flew through the air towards the raven-haired boy. Naruto, Sasuke screamed, his lungs burning with the effort of conveying all of his emotions in a single word. Focusing on his counterpart's eyes, Sasuke could see the pure emotion that lay within the sapphire orbs. Sasuke, Naruto responded. With a single scream, Naruto tried to convey everything he couldn't using words. Mirroring his rival, Naruto brought his hand forward, bringing the blue ball of destruction with it as Sasuke thrust forward his attack. The two powerhouses were so focused on each other, so single-mindedly intent on the other, that neither noticed the third, and only female, member of their team rush out from her hiding place in the roof door. Sakura's eyes were bloodshot as she used every ounce of energy she had to try and stop the two boys from killing each other. Naruto and Sasuke were moving at speeds that started to approach light. Sakura was a 13-year-old girl that was honestly out of shape for her profession. There was no way that she should have been able to reach the impact zone before the two collided. And yet she did. Somewhere, a floating old man smiled. XXX, what the fuck is going on here? Teiwaya, the fourth member of Orochimaru's infamous Sound 4 team, and resident Jinjutsu master, nearly squeaked. If everything had gone according to plan, then she would have been fleeing with her master by now, and no doubt be planning an infiltration. Things were not going according to plan for her. For once it wasn't Naruto's fault, it was his wife's. Just shut the hell up, and move, Tenten hissed. Sensing something off on the fringe of her awareness, Tenten ducked. A pulse of chakra impacted the tree behind where her head was, cracking it apart. Teiwaya whimpered. Tenten couldn't blame the poor girl. Does she ever tire? Teiwaya asked. Her eyes were wide, but also drooping. The poor girl was good, but she wasn't quite at Tenten's level in the future. She couldn't handle several days of non-stop exertion. She does, Tenten answered. The bun-haired girl threw a kunai to her far right, not quite aiming at anything in particular. The knife embedded itself into a tree. That tree promptly exploded. Just not when it comes to Naruto. Who the flying fuck is Naruto was all Teiwaya was able to get out before Tenten grabbed her by the collar and teleported away. The massive trees they were running amongst broke apart. Being repelled by an ungodly force, the two kunoichi landed in a clearing. Tenten remained standing while her charge collapsed to the ground, her legs giving way to exhaustion. Despite her maintained composure, however, Tenten was still breathing heavily. I think, Tenten gasped out, that we're going to have to fight her. No shit, Teiwaya gasped. Any plans? Tenten started. In the distance several trees were felled, each fallen tree closer than the last. Don't die. You are the pinnacle of leadership. A tree on the edge of the clearing snapped, falling over slowly and ominously. When the dust from the impact finally settled, the two kunoichi were greeted to what would be known as the most terrifying thing they had ever seen. And Tenten had seen the 10 tails. Teiwaya had seen Orochimaru get out of the shower. Well, the most terrifying thing Tenten had ever seen. Miss Tenten? Hinata asked, her voice too calm and too sweet to belong to the relentless monster that had chased said girl through a forest for several days. Why do you run? I just want to talk. Tenten looked behind Hinata. There was a literal path of destruction marked by the toppled trees Hinata had bowled over in her non-stop advance. If she looked hard enough, Tenten could even see the ones that the Hyuga had all but disintegrated. Tenten looked back at Hinata. I highly doubt that you just want to talk. Yeah, you bimbo, what's your problem? Teiwaya struggled to get out. Already seeing where this was going, Tenten subtly inched away from the red-haired girl. Whether or not Hinata was upset at being called a bimbo wasn't perceivable. With a serene smile on her face, Hinata simply tilted her head as she slowly walked forward. Tenten, in turn, slowly backed away. Nothing, really, Hinata said. Her voice regal if not downright terrifying. I just want to know why Miss Tenten here. Hinata gestured to Tenten. The bun-haired girl resisted the urge to flee. Was messing around with my Naruto. Hinata, Tenten pleaded. He's allowed to talk to other women. Of course he is, Hinata responded. Her smile looked plastered on. He can't talk to any woman he likes. He's not allowed to flirt with them without my permission. Hinata's smile turned predatory. And women are definitely not allowed to flirt with him. Hinata, I wasn't flirting with Hai, so this is about a stupid fucking quarrel with some stupid fucking boy. Teiwaya tried to pick herself off the floor, but only managed to lift her upper body. You chased us through the fucking jungle for 3 fucking days because of some stupid boy. Tenten didn't miss the way that Hinata twitched every time Teiwaya said stupid boy. She inched closer and closer to the tree line in the hopes that she would be able to make a break for it. I didn't even have anything to do with your fucking boy toy. I don't have anything to do with this at all. Hinata's eyes started twitching. So if you could do me a favor, why don't you leave me alone, fuck off, and take this bun-haired bimbo with you. With any luck, she can find your stupid little Naruto. She apparently flirts with him. Bet Tenten almost jumped out of her skin when Hinata simply appeared in front of Teiwaya. Like a viper, Hinata's hand darted forward and clasped firmly around Teiwaya's throat. The sound ninja gasped as her oxygen supply was steadily being cut off. I know what. Teiwaya gasped. This was clearly a new thing for her. You do not get to say his name, harlot. Hinata did not look pleased. I don't wait. What? Teiwaya gasped. The weight of the situation had finally started to bear on the poor girl. Bun. Bitch. Help. Teiwaya looked around for her temporary companion, only to see that Tenten had evacuated while the wide-eyed monster was fixated on her. You're fucking, bitch, Teiwaya gasped, directing all of her hate at Tenten. Hinata only squeezed harder. XXX Tenten dead sprinted through the forest, appending dirt, leaves, and small bushes in her wake. Teiwaya was a noble, if unwitting, sacrifice. She had uttered the forbidden, and as such deserved her fate, though to be honest, Tenten didn't remember ever telling Teiwaya what exactly the forbidden was. She should have known better than to say Naruto where Hinata could hear her. It's not my fault. It's not my fault at all. Tenten tried to reassure herself. I'm completely guilt-free. Really, it was more karma that clotheslined the kunoichi than Hinata's arm. Tenten fell, hitting the forest floor hard. Hinata emerged from the tree she was hiding behind, her smirk gone, but replaced by the multiple splashes of red on her face. Hinata, what are you doing here? Hinata tilted her head. Chasing you, of course. We still need to talk. We do? Tenten asked. Hinata's response was to crush the tree she was hiding behind. The Hyuga heiress hadn't moved. The tree simply folded beneath her ire. Of course we do. What do we need to talk about? Hinata's eyes narrowed, focusing in on the girl on the floor beneath her. Your relationship with Naruto. What's that about? Tenten could tell Hinata tried to sound casual. The bloodstains crisscrossing her face only made her seem more frightening. We're just friends, Tenten tried. Several trees exploded. I want the truth, Miss Tenten, Hinata said. Her eye twitched back. No one is just friends with Naruto. They're either completely indifferent, antagonistic like Sakura, or in love with him, like me. Tenten was slightly shocked at how Aku and Sasuke, Hinata finished rate that statement was. Still, that statement was only accurate in the past, and not now, or, at least, the her of now. I'm not lying, Hinata. I really am. Lies, Hinata said, her voice hard like rocks. I can't tell you two are closer than just friends. Now tell me the truth, please. Tenten knew that there was no question being posed there. Shrugging, she figured that she might as well tell the truth. I know him so well because we've had years to get to know one another. I know him from the future, where we are both well into adulthood. He's the Hokage, and father of your 2 children, and I'm a world-renowned weapons master. Now when Tenten told her story, she expected many different scenarios to happen. She expected Hinata to scoff and threaten her harder for her obvious and outlandish lie. She expected Hinata to start following through on threats. Hell, she expected the Hyuga to grow tired and just outright kill her. She didn't expect Hinata to laugh, then accept the story. Honestly, it was the most horrifying outcome thus far. If Hinata was so far gone that she accepted something like a story about time travel, then Tenten was in a much worse situation than she thought. I see, Hinata laughed, the sound like a tinkling of bells. Then this is fine. It is. Tenten stuttered. In all honesty, she was just waiting for the world to turn gray, and time to reset. That's what was supposed to happen, right? She hadn't made time restart once since she had returned to the past. So surely she got at least one go? Yes, Hinata answered. It is. Suddenly the world seemed less cold. Birds that had gone deathly quiet started to sing once more. The wind started blowing, and the air tasted of grass and fresh dew. Somewhere, somehow, someone was being stabbed in the gut by a magical jutsu or another hell. Tenten's sinuses cleared. Naruto was probably fighting Sasuke over something stupid, and Hinata was a stuttering shut-in again. All was right in the world once more. Hinata. Tenten gasped, the act of saying the name like disarming a bomb. You okay? Hinata asked, her voice lighter than air, and probably as stable. Oh, I'm fine, Tenten. Hinata then smiled. Tenten's spine tingled. Tenten started, unsure of what to say. Hinata seemed like, well, normal Hinata again. Tenten wasn't fooled, however. She knew that the unmatched demoness wasn't a split personality. Hinata was a dangerous psychopath when she wanted to be. Tenten had to choose her words carefully to make sure that Hinata didn't want to be one right now. You okay? I couldn't be better, Miss Tenten, Hinata said. Her smile seemed more genuine now, a fact that would have calmed Tenten's frayed nerves if not for the fact that the girl was currently wiping blood off her face as if it were the most normal thing in the world. To be fair, in their work, wiping blood off of things was fairly common. Wiping your comrades' blood of your face after chasing them for days with the sole intent to maim and or murder them was arguably less common. I see, Tenten stuttered. She was about to continue talking, because anything was better than the awkward silence filled only by Hinata's serene smile, when the princess in question broke the silence herself. I mean, why wouldn't I be happy? I was just told that I get to marry the man of my dreams. We have not one but 2 children, and he even achieves his dream of becoming the strongest man in the entire village. Technically, he's the strongest man in the entire world, Tenten added in. The weapons master regretted that action immediately as the Hyuga heiresses had whipped in her direction, so fast it created gusts of air. Hinata's face was practically orgasmic. Even better, Hinata all but purred. And he's mine, right? All mine, and no one else's. I think Sasuke has some dibs, Tenten murmured, her responses automatic. Her brain had started to shut down in fear. Hinata seemed crazed, and a crazed Hinata, as proven by recent circumstances, was not a good one. Well, that's to be expected, Hinata said, waving her hand as if dismissing the fact. As long as it's just with Sasuke, I don't mind sharing him. The kids might have some dibs, Tenten said, her voice still on autopilot. Hinata's laugh was hollow. They have visiting rights through me. No one has dibs besides me, and Sasuke. Not Kakashi, not Konohamaru, and especially not. The world went silent once more. Somewhere in the distance Tenten could hear the faint cries of Naruto, and Sasuke, and nothing else. Hinata practically teleported again, but this time over to Tenten. Grabbing the girl by the shoulders, Hinata stared into her senior Kunoichi's eyes, her own burning with the rage of 1,000 suns. Miss Tenten? Hinata asked. Tenten nodded her head so quickly it hurt. What has become of Sakura? She's married, Tenten stuttered. To Sasuke. And Naruto, Hinata continued. What are his feelings towards her? They're still close, but nothing romantic, Tenten squeaked, answering to the best of her ability. She prayed that her truths were good enough. That's odd, Hinata murmured, more to herself than Tenten. I would have thought that I would have set him against her. By how old am I in the future? I think somewhere in your 30s, Tenten said, unsure of her own age at this point. How long have we been married? Hinata asked. Her grip on Tenten's shoulders was starting to get painful. About 6 years, Tenten stuttered. Why wasn't time restarting yet? You married shortly after Himori was born. Hinata grimaced. Is that my son? Did I name him that? No, Tenten said, shaking her head. That was the name of your daughter. Himari Uzumaki. Oh, Hinata's grimace faded. I guess that means that Niji is dead. Tenten resisted the urge to ask how the two facts were connected at all. What of my son? What is his name? Boruto, Tenten answered. Hinata's face was blank. Naruto named him. Tenten couldn't find it in her to deny that. Oh well, they can't all be winners. I'll just ask him what he was thinking when he named our children directly. Hinata then let go of Tenten. The bun-haired girl rubbed her shoulders. Are you coming along? Tenten could still hear Naruto and Sasuke yelling in the distance, as Hinata had chased them well enough away from the village. This was impressive. I think we should give Naruto some time right now. Hinata, who had started to walk away, turned around slowly. The serene smile, and dear gods, was Tenten starting to reevaluate the meaning of that word, was back. With partially lidded eyes, The Hyuga era spoke her next words with the same amount of certainty one would use to say that the sun would rise the next morning. Oh, he'll make time for me, Hinata said. Tenten whimpered as she followed after the 13-year-old. XXX gloved hands grasped the wrists of both boys, and pulled. Using the momentum of the two attacks against them, Kakashi Hatake redirected both the flame style, Black Reikiri, and the sage style, Rasenshuriken into the two water silos that sat atop the roof. Both water silos disintegrated? They simply did not exist anymore. Naruto and Sasuke struggled to stand. Their high-powered attacks were taxing even in their base forms, but both boys had poured all of their energy into the techniques this time in an effort to overpower the other. Kakashi, Sasuke asked, being the first to coherently recover. What are you doing here? The masked man smiled, his eye crinkling being the only visible indicator of that action even taking place. I think the better question would be what are all of you doing up here? Naruto, who recovered second, stuck out his tongue. Hey Kakashi-sensei. No fair. We asked first. Well, Kakashi mused. He had pulled out a book from somewhere, and was now paying it more regard than he did the two boys throwing mountain-destroying abilities at each other. I asked better. Now answer, I think. Sakura gasped. She hadn't fully recovered from being between what basically equated as two nuclear warheads, but that she had recovered at all was summarily impressive. The better question should be what the hell was all that? Kakashi looked up from his book. Indeed. The water silos that were nearly a staple of the Hidden Leaf Village since its founding now seemed to have never been there at all. Such was the level of destruction that his two students had wrought. That is a rather pertinent question, Kakashi said, his head back in his book. Sakura stared at her teacher, wondering whether his nonchalant attitude was a coping mechanism, or a technique used specifically to drive people insane. Knowing the man, it was both. Naruto stammered. He was never the most eloquent of, basically anything. Sasuke decided to throw the man a bone this one time. It was a dream. You're both dreaming, the Uchiha said. Naruto facepalmed. You're terrible at lying, Naruto said. Sasuke glared at him. Well, excuse me. You'll find that it's a skill I've never had to use when I could just as easily tell the truth, then turn into a giant purple skeleton. Sasuke then sheathed his hands in his pockets again. Besides, you weren't doing any better? If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were taking cues from your wife. Hey! Naruto shouted. Don't talk about Hinata like that. She can hear you. XXX halfway back to the hidden leaf, Hinata sneezed. Tenten's mini heart attack was justified. XXX I don't understand your fear of your wife, Sasuke started. Sure. She isn't exactly a pushover, but that you're so afraid of her doesn't really make sense. To be fair, Kakashi grunted. You weren't at the wedding. Yeah. Naruto piggybacked off of his teacher. If you heard what she was like, you'd understand my pain. Sasuke rolled his eyes. If she is so abusive, then why are you still with her? It's not like the strongest man in the elemental nations would be denied if he filed for a divorce. To this, Naruto only asked one thing. How many times have you met Himori? Sasuke, who was about to make another point, closed his mouth. After thinking for a bit, he posed his own question. What's your point? Hinata is 10 times worse. Dear gods. Off to the side, another conversation was taking place, as wont to do whenever Naruto and Sasuke existed in the same place at the same time. What are they talking about? Sakura asked. Naruto and Hinata are married. When was the wedding? Who's Hinari? Questions were apparently piling up in Sakura's mind. Oh, Kakashi said, his voice only a single octave higher than usual. I was sure that it was the entirety of Team 7 that came back. I guess it's just us, then? When Kakashi didn't continue, Sakura just continued for him. It was routine by this point. She would have to fill in the sanity for the whole team. It's just you what? Exactly. Kakashi mumbled. He raised an eyebrow then looked down at his charge. Whoa. Just us men. See, we're all from the future. Sakura was about to scoff, when she noticed the grayness start to appear on the very outskirts of the world. This wouldn't be the first time that she saw it. And in an attempt to prevent it, she did what she did best. She played it off as a joke. Haha, you're so funny, Kakashi-sensei. Sakura laughed, putting her all into believing that the very serious statement that her teacher made had been a joke. She disregarded the fact that Kakashi Hatake never joked, and almost bought into her own delirium. It wouldn't be the first time she had done so. Already the grayness of the time stop had started to recede, and for a while, Sakura believed that she had once again won. You know I don't joke, Kakashi said, starting the onset of the world graying once more. Sheesh, I liked you better when you were Sakura Uchiha. To Sakura's benefit, the world stopped graying. XXX elsewhere an equally disastrous event was taking place. Miss Tenten, Hinata asked. Tenten resisted the urge to wince. How did the girl make talking seem so terrifying? What was my name in the future? Hinata asked. Without looking ahead of her, the failure of the Hyuga main branch leapt between the branches of the trees, with all the grace of a swan. Tenten, not seeing the harm in this, answered her tormentor. Your name in the future is Hinata Uzumaki, matriarch of the Uzumaki clan. Hinata shuddered once in mind-numbing glee before falling unconscious. Tenten debated whether or not she should catch the girl, then thought about Naruto's reaction should he find out that she chose not to. Tenten dove for the girl. XXX, and furthermore, what use could a marital band be when we have the power to literally carve the moon? And Sasuke's comment stopped halfway. In an unsurprising moment of duality, both godlike children stopped in their bickering to notice an irresistibly chilling spark run up their spines, as if to answer their unspoken question. A thud rang out behind them, the sound easily heard as the entire planet had gone silent. Some unspeakable evil, some unstoppable force, had been awakened. Roused from its slumber, the beast's reemergence into this world, the simple act of it moving once more, shushed all those with a survival instinct, and to make matters worse, there were two of them. All Naruto and Sasuke saw was their teacher standing next to an unconscious Sakura. The Hatake's head was buried in his book, but even he looked jarred. His eyebrow twitched 2 whole times. Kakashi, Sasuke started. Kakashi looked up from his book. You're a Kakashi, aren't you? Kakashi nodded once. Naruto cursed under his breath. Exactly how long have you been our Kakashi? Sasuke asked, his interrogation continuing. Ever since Naruto burned all of my books. Kakashi then shrugged, as if to say oops. Immediately Sasuke's head whipped to the side. He addressed thin air with his words. Grandpa Sage, you get your bony ass out here. The sage appeared instantly. His face was split with a shit-eating grin. You rang? Sasuke pointed at Kakashi. When exactly were you going to tell us? The sage looked at Kakashi. Kakashi looked back. The two nodded at the same time, some unspoken message being conveyed between the two. Most likely, the sage responded. Never. And why not? Naruto asked between clenched teeth. It was Kakashi that answered. To fuck with you, of course. Kakashi turned a page in his book. The venerable sage did say that he was going to actively mess with you. He brought me in to make sure that it happened. Naruto and Sasuke both shared a scoff. Kakashi decided to cut their glee short right there. And before you mount your high horse, no. I'm not the person he brought back to mess with you too. I'm the person he brought back to make sure you get messed with, and I've done that. Kakashi's eye smile widened. Just so you know, none of the people brought back in time after me were by accident. Kakashi then looked down at Sakura. She had begun to twitch. The Cyclops looked back up to the two horrified boys. Enjoy, Kakashi sang, and with a twirl of the Sage of Six Paths staff, the two oldest people on the building were gone. The two godlike children just looked down at Sakura. She had begun to twitch again. Naruto? Sasuke asked. His voice may or may not have cracked. Where's Hinata? She's with Naruto paled. She's with Tenten. XXX Tenten looked at Hinata's twitching form, and was only too glad to see Hagoromo and Kakashi appear. Thank gods you're here. I can't stand being around the little psychopath any longer. I love Hinata to death, but that's in the future, when her insanity was refined. Tenten looked at the Cyclops. You hold up your end. Kakashi gave her a thumbs up. Tenten smiled. Well then, Tenten all but purred, a Cheshire grin on her face. She held out her hands, and all three conscious ninjas in the clearing held hands. Shall we watch gods fall? The three ninjas teleported out of the area. Now alone, no one could see Hinata's twitch worsen. XXX Orochimaru smiled. Before him, held down by the most powerful sealing array he could muster, was the nine-tailed fox. A flash of light heralded his guests, and Orochimaru turned to his three companions with glee. Kakashi, Tenten, Hagoromo. It is so good to see you all again. Orochimaru held out his arms. No one seemed to reciprocate his joy. While Kakashi branched off to poke at the trap-tailed beast, Tenten immediately vacated to the farthest part of the room from where Orochimaru currently was. She made adjustments to where exactly that was in real time. Quite, Hagoromo responded. He nodded once to his trapped fox son, who nodded back unperturbed, before floating over to a giant television screen. It took up almost an entire wall of the room, so it was hard to miss. Have you set up the cameras? Oh well, yes, Orochimaru said, his every syllable sounding perverse and sinister. The cameras all over the hidden leaf, as well as its surrounding forest, should catch every moment of Naruto and Sasuke's downfall. Figures you would be all too happy to film Sasuke, Tenten not so quietly whispered. Orochimaru ignored her with practiced ease. Shall we watch the fall of gods? Orochimaru asked, unknowingly copying Tenten's earlier question. Ignoring Tenten's rather violent shudder at the thought that she could ever think similarly to the snake, Hagoromo nodded. Let's, the sage said, and the television turned on. It showed a rather panicked Naruto and Sasuke, who were currently running for dear life. I must say Kurama started. Kakashi, who was currently poking the Foxman, spoke up. Why are you speaking so deeply? If I had to imagine your voice in text, it'd be in bold. Kurama expertly ignored the silver-haired Cyclops. I must say this is a rather smart plan, given those involved. At once those involved glared at the smiling fox. What better way to mess with the two most powerful and cunning men in the world than with their wives? XXX Naruto, Sasuke asked, his voice coming out hurried and frantic. Where's Kurama? Why aren't you summoning Kurama? I can't. Naruto yelled back. His voice, too, was harried, and he ran through a well-practiced set of hand seals with speed that would rival light. Fat lot of good it did him though. It's just not working. Well, make it work, Sasuke grunted. Even now the Uchiha could already feel it. She was already waking up, and when she did, she would want answers. His wife's two personalities would crash, much like his own did. And while Sasuke could reconcile himself relatively easy, he had the added benefit of not being certifiably insane. Over in Naruto's head, much the same dilemma was going on. Oh shit, oh fuck, oh shit, oh fuck. It sounded ineloquent, but it was honestly the most appropriate thought to have in such a situation. What do we do? Sasuke asked his commander. I'm down my Rinnegan, you're down the chakra of the tailed beasts, and now you're telling me you don't even have Kurama. Naruto! Sasuke screamed. What do we do? Naruto, who was still flipping through hand seals, worked his rarely used mind into overtime. After a couple seconds, in which time thousands of thoughts went through his head, Naruto turned to his second in command, and said the only words that stuck out. I don't know. Sasuke balked. What do you mean, you don't know? Aren't you Naruto fucking Uzumaki, the world's most unpredictable ninja? We don't pay you not to know, we pay you to pull a victory out of whatever you call a brain up there, and get us out of this mess, so start doing it. Sasuke then shuddered. Naruto. My wife, she's immortal. You know that, right Naruto? I can't stop her without the Rinnegan. She will definitely kill me. Naruto. What do we do? Naruto, noticing his best friend's rapidly declining mental state, stopped his sprint and slapped him as hard as he could. The shock was so sudden, so unexpected, that Sasuke was broken from his train of thought. He was also broken through several trees, but that was honestly a lesser fact. Sasuke. I know, Naruto started. Believe me, I know. Hinata is. She's special. She's an evil unlike the world has ever seen when she's mad, and she will be clinically mad when she returns from the future. I don't know about you, but I think the only answer available to us is plainly obvious. Naruto then looked out, over the horizon. We run. XXX meanwhile, with Neji. Where the hell is everyone? Konohamaru was a smart boy. He ate his vegetables with every meal, and looked both ways as well as up for the traveling ninja before crossing the street. He, despite his rancorous reputation, actually studied very hard, and knew his arithmetic as well as he was supposed to. He knew the history of the village he was from, as well as a very limited history of those he wasn't from. Konohamaru was a very smart boy, or at least as smart as he needed to be. That is why when he saw the rapidly fleeing form of his hero, one Naruto Uzumaki, he didn't call out to the boy as he usually did. For you see, Konohamaru was a smart boy, and he knew that he wanted nothing to do with the pink-haired demon chasing his hero down. XXX Sakura was a woman of many things. Perseverance, intelligence, and untold grace were only three of the traits that she came to be known for in her adulthood. She was no longer a Hiruno, a no-name civilian clan with exactly that much going for her. She was now the matriarch of the Uchiha clan. Sure, it was a rather lonely existence, as, more often than not, her husband was away from home. It was still worth it because she had one. She had one Sasuke, and not even from Ino. She had one Sasuke from Sasuke, and the whole damn village knew it. The lonely, brooding bastard, and wasn't it good to be mature enough to call her husband that, had lost. She had broken through his emo little heart and burrowed down there, finding a place to call home in its cavernous, unused halls. It felt good. Sure, he wasn't the strongest in the world, but he was definitely the hardest to get a hold of, and for that Sakura felt proud. Like Naruto had felt when he became the 7th Hokage, Sakura felt especially vindicated when Sasuke had awkwardly slipped the ring on her finger that fateful night. It felt good. It felt like closure. It felt like freedom, and happiness, and sweet, sweet victory. So you can imagine Sakura's pure unbridled rage when she woke up in the middle of the forest with not only no ring on her finger, but no matching victory in her heart. Sadly, you can only imagine it, because Sakura's rage was so many times greater than anything anyone could understand. This is Naruto's fault, the Kunoichi growled. her fury righteous and justified. I'm going to kill him and his fox. Then Sasuke. It's his fault somehow too. I'm going to kill them both, then bring Sasuke back, make him put the ring on my finger, then kill him again. The pink-haired ninja stomped off in the general direction of the village, her eyes blazing with untold fury. Each step caused a localized earthquake and uprooted nearby trees. Then, suddenly, she stopped, pulling at a shirt she hadn't been able to fit in for years. Sakura took a peek down at her suddenly much flatter than usual chest. Then she roared, and the whole world felt their mortality. Good news, I'm not going to kill you two anymore. Sakura howled to the two soon-to-be dead men wherever they were. I'm just going to keep you in a state of very near death for the rest of my miserable life. If my master is anything to go by, it's going to be a very long one. And then she took off, her leap absolutely destroying the area she was in. XXX Shikamaru is the smartest existence in the elemental nations. This has always been the case. From the time he first came into understanding of the world around him, at the ripe age of 2, Shikamaru had been on the forefront of understanding and knowledge. He was lazy, sure, but all the time spent doing nothing outwardly was just an excuse to riddle apart the mysteries of the world. Indeed, at 13, there were only a handful of people rivaling Shikamaru in the intellectual department. Subsequent years would make that handful shrink, so it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Shikamaru had pretty much figured out that his friends were time travelers about as soon as he came into contact with them. Their weird actions, as well as their weird conversations, were all he needed to come up with a hypothesis that quickly became fact in the young genius mind. Now if only he weren't so damn lazy that the universe didn't think he was a threat to be corrected. So because of his near inability to do anything more than what he was absolutely supposed to, the universe didn't find it necessary to revert the world to before Shikamaru figured out something was going on. So he pretty much was around the entire time? And true to the universe's decision, absolutely nothing changed because of it. Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. The normally stoic Sasuke Uchiha screamed, Dojutsu blazing as he ran from the normally timid Hinata Hyuga, her Dojutsu also blazing. Shikamaru simply stepped to the side, letting the 2 human bullets blaze through the town. Shikamaru drawled. I'm guessing that somehow Hinata was brought back as well. She must be unhappy about this. The only reason I could see why though is if she was Naruto's wife, and pissed off that she was torn from her family, finding no one else to take her wrath out on, as Naruto is notoriously good at hiding, she decided to pursue the next best thing. Shikamaru then let out an exaggerated sigh. I'm guessing this means that Sakura is back as well, and chasing down Naruto. Shikamaru then proceeded through the village without a care in the world. I guess I better lay low now. XXX Naruto. That was the single soul, all-consuming thought going through the Hyuga heiress mind as she sat nearly unconscious under a tree. It was a nice thought filled with longing and hope and, though she hadn't known it at the time, lust. It wasn't unusual for Hinata to dream about her crush, to think about her crush, to stalk her crush when the option was available. What was unusual was for her to think about him so often. These recent events had made so many things known to her, and for one blissful moment, her thoughts were completely obsessed with her orange-wearing, blonde admiration. Had this been allowed to continue, Hinata might have become obsessed. She might have become dangerous? Well, more dangerous than she was already. Then the universe was forced to step in, and suddenly everything was just so clear for young Hinata. The Uzumaki matriarch got a bombardment of emotions out of nowhere, where she was once washing dishes, and getting ready to prepare lunch with her beloved daughter. She was now sitting under a tree with hair far shorter than she remembered. Most importantly, she was now being hit with some very powerful emotions that she was not expecting. They bordered on obsessive, they bordered on insane, and like the mature, controllably insane woman that Hinata was, she dismissed them all. Where the Hyuga heiress was experiencing these emotions all at once in the span of a couple minutes, the older Hinata had grappled with these same emotions over the course of 3 very long, very agonizing years. She knew how to deal with them. They were the emotions of an emotionally stunted child. She was an emotionally fulfilled adult, so with a nod of her head, she swept them all away. They were compartmentalized where they needed to and sorted out with an amazing efficiency in the span of 2 seconds. With that out of the way, the young Uzumaki stood up. She wiped off her suspiciously short pants, she had taken to wearing dresses, and patted her suspiciously puffy cheeks. Her face had become slender and graceful. Then she looked to the village. I'm in the past, she said. Immediately unbridled rage came to her. Like her previous emotions, she pounded it down, and put it in its place. With a clear head, she once again regarded the 4 faces on the Hokage's mountain. Then she closed her eyes. She could feel the earthquakes. She could hear the panicked screams that sounded oh so much like her son's when he was about to get a beating. So Sakura's back too. It seems that she has already found Naruto. Goodness knows how she does it. Hinata then put a hand to her chin. She contemplated her next actions, then smiled. It was a wicked smile, born of years of being married to a sadistic troublemaker, and fathering a second one. Well, if my dear Sakura is handling my husband, then it would seem that no one is handling hers. Hinata's dark smile only grew. It seems it is time for this village to experience the wrath of the prank queen of Konoha. Elsewhere, Sasuke's spine shivered to the point of almost breaking. XXX Naruto. No, Naruto screamed. With a yell reminiscent of his now estranged son, the seventh Hokage ducked under yet another house being thrown at him. This was the fourth one thrown at him. When Sakura was feeling less vindictive, she only threw horses, people, and stalls. I just want to talk to you, Sakura said. Her face calm despite her thunderous pursuit. Naruto threw caution to the wind, and looked over his shoulder at one of his closest friends. She had another damn house in her hand. Not hands. She had a house in just one hand, and carried it over her head as if it were some kind of paperweight. Naruto turned back to his fling. I doubt that. Sakura pondered. How would you know that if you don't ever stop? You're throwing a boat at me, Naruto responded. Where did you even get a boat? You're asking the wrong questions, Sakura said, her face in a pout. Listen. I'm not even mad. Sakura. Where did you get the third Raikuge's statue? Indeed, Sakura held in her hands a piece of the third Raikuge's statue. It was commonly found in the village hidden in the clouds, and weighed well over several tons. Sakura ignored his question as she chucked the thing at the orange boy. I just want to talk to you. I promise that is the only reason that I'm throwing these things at you. I'm not falling for that again. Then I suppose that you will just be falling then? At that prompt, Naruto swiftly jumped high into the air. Not a second after he had done so had the world exploded. Fissures creaked throughout all of the village hidden in the leaves, and entire tufts of land were uprooted. It was a disaster worse than Pines. Sakura looked bored. Sakura, you're destroying the village, and you'll be next if you don't stop running. No, so be it. Sakura responded with a sigh. She then picked up an entire chunk of upturned land, and continued her pursuit. XXX Sasuke had never before wished that he had the ability to retreat to his other dimensions as much as he did right now. The Rinnegan really was a useful ability, and had he had it, maybe he wouldn't be in the situation he was in right now. It all started when he heard the thunderous explosions. Since he didn't remember anyone attacking the village at this point in time, that could only mean one thing. His wife was back, and as usual, she beelined it to Naruto to take her anger out on him. Sasuke still wasn't sure why, but Sakura's default outlet for her anger was still her blonde teammate, so there was one monstrosity out of the way. Sasuke breathed a sigh of relief when he realized that the first disaster was avoided. Then his breath caught in his throat as all around him a feeling of just pure wrongness pervaded the world. It seeped into his pores from everywhere he could conceive. Even the very ground felt tainted and dangerous. "Voh, all right, Hinata." "That's right," a voice whispered into the Uchiha's ear. It was somehow both as smooth as silk, and as sharp as a knife. "Me." Sasuke didn't even look back. Not a second after he heard the words, he took off, bustling through the village like a bat out of hell. Not really caring about the people he knocked over in his attempt to flee, Sasuke tried his hardest to escape the pure terror that was behind him, only to run straight into a dirt wall that wasn't in front of him less than a second ago. "Erg," Sasuke grumbled. He tried to extract himself from the wall, but his hand stuck to where he tried to push off. Behind him, Sasuke could hear laughter. "You should really pay more attention to where you're going, Uchiha-san. When did you even have time to set up traps?" Sasuke asked. Hinata giggled. "A true prank master needs very little time to set up menial pranks." Sasuke couldn't see it, but Hinata's smile grew. He felt it though. It felt evil. "Now when you see my extended pranks, oh boy, you're really gonna wonder how I did those." "You've been spending too much time with Naruto," Sasuke sighed. Already he was burning through the sap on the wall with a low-powered Amaterasu. "And you haven't been spending enough time with him," Hinata responded. "Otherwise, you might have been able to dodge some of these." Some of what was all the raven-haired boy was able to get out before a literal horde of weaponry came flying at him from literally nowhere. Thinking quickly, the last Uchiha burned away, the last of the sap, and simply headbutted the wall he was attached to with all of the earth-natured chakra he could muster. It wasn't a lot, so a lot of the force was from the headbutt, but Sasuke managed to break through the wall, and dodge the weaponry. He rolled to safety on the outer side of the wall, his forehead bleeding but no worse for the wear. "Are you insane, woman? You could have killed me." "So it appears that you could dodge that just by being a competent enough ninja," Hinata pondered. "Interesting." Are you ignoring me?" Sasuke asked. Hinata waved her hand at him. "You're still here?" Hinata asked. "Well, that's good I suppose. I'm going to need you to run through the rest of the traps that I put up around the village as well." I need to see which are ninja-proof, and which aren't. Go on now. Shoo. I'm not your dog, Sasuke growled. He made to move on the young Hyuga, but the smaller girl didn't budge. Instead, she pulled out a whistle. She took a deep breath before blowing into it. Sasuke's head exploded, such was the depth of the pain. Bad Sasuke, Hinata yelled as if she were talking to a dog. Go run the death gauntlet. Why you call it the death gauntlet? Why would I run through something called the death gauntlet? Hinata blew the whistle again. Sasuke collapsed from the pain. What is that? Naruto made it. He said it only works on brooding assholes that you need to train to get better. Sasuke sighed. Of course he would. Now are you gonna run my ultra death gauntlet? Or not? Sasuke glared at the Hyuga. I hate you. Hinata made to blow into the whistle, but Sasuke was already gone. Smiling, Hinata pursued the boy. XXX The third Hokage watched as his village was being destroyed by 4 brats who had no business wielding that kind of power. He turned back to the room he was supposed to be supervising. All 4 of those children are going to be in the Chunin exams. 3 of them are on the same team. Anyone else want to submit their team for testing? When absolutely no one else stepped up, Saratobi hears inside. He turned back to the wanton destruction that was happening outside his window, and watched for as long as he could before the headache overwhelmed him. Then he turned back to the assembled ninja before him. Since Kakashi isn't here, I'm going to have to field my question to the one person who can answer my inquiries. Kyurni, what are you teaching these children? Kyurni, a new Jonin, blinked her red eyes rapidly. She looked around the room, as if anyone else would be able to provide her with the answers that she apparently did not have. When nothing came up, and no one stepped forward, the woman sighed. I haven't been teaching Hinata. She's my only student out there, by the way. Thus far I've been trying to teach her to better her confidence. Judging by her current performance, however, Kyurni had to trail off as Hinata, in pursuit of the Uchiha, barreled through a small mansion. Their passage leveled the entire building. It seems that I have succeeded. Indeed. The Hokage agreed. A tad too well it seems. They are running around the village destroying everything that they can. This needs to stop. Excuse me Master Hokage, a no-name Jonin asked. As he stepped forward, he afforded his leader a small bow. If I could be so blunt, why don't you simply send your Anbu after them? To this, the Hokage simply gestured outside once more. The assembled Jonin looked outside to see that there were in fact, entire squads of Anbu trying to subdue the children. They weren't doing very well. In fact, the children didn't even seem to notice them. Whoa, the no-name Jonin said. His mouth went dry as he saw the Jinchuriki Rasengan and Anbu out of the way in his mad dash away from his pink-haired teammate. Said pink-haired teammate punched that same Anbu into the sky. He was still going. What do we do, Dad? Asuma asked. Outside the window, the Uchiha attempted to put the Hyuga in a Jinjutsu. Hinata literally smacked the attempt out of the way. The chakra, visible to normalize, now went sailing and hit a villager. That villager, initially stunned by the impact of the technique, calmly rose from his position on the ground, walked over to the nearest stall, and picked up a discarded knife. I have seen true pain, and decided that life isn't worth living anymore. This shall be my last, solemn mercy to myself. I will embrace the sweet nothingness that awaits beyond death. The lesser ninja had to turn their heads. Asuma only gaped. What did he see? Asuma turned to his father. What the hell did he see? Both the third Hokage, and Kyurni, the only 2 in the room who could recognize a Jinjutsu at a glance, stared with wide eyes at the spectacle before them. They looked to one another, and concluded in an unspoken agreement. With a minute nod of the head, they turned to their son potential love interest. The mysteries of the Sharingan can never be fully explored, the third Hokage said, rubbing his beard. His eyes were shifty as he attempted to focus on anything but his disbelieving son. Bull, Asuma said, his voice rising. I saw that look on your face. You know what just happened? Asuma stopped when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Kyurni looked at him, a grave expression on her face. The mysteries of the Sharingan can never be fully explored. Asuma decided to leave it at that. Regardless, the Hokage continued. He was looking out the window again. We cannot allow them to continue this. I'm calling for all active duty shinobi not currently busy to help in apprehending them. If we work together, we can't stop them. The Hokage then chuckled. Maybe put them in timeout, or something. Yes, Lord Hokage. The room of upper-level ninja chorused. With a snap of the old man's fingers, the assembled ninja disappeared. Not a single sound made amongst them. The old Hokage sighed. He took a seat in his chair, and swiveled it to look out his window once more. From this point, he could see all of his beloved village. He could see half of it going up in flames. Damn kids, the old man grumbled. If I have to go out there myself, I'm going to be very upset. XXX Hey Sakura, Naruto asked. He was running in the main street of Konoha, but suddenly increased his pace. Using his chakra to stick to the walls of the buildings, he ran halfway up one before taking off and flipping in the air. It was all he could do to avoid yet another building being thrown at him. Yes, Naruto? Sakura asked innocently. In the time it took her to speak, Sakura had torn the building Naruto had just jumped off from the ground. She cocked her arm back. Don't you notice something odd? Naruto asked. He created a shadow clone with no hand signs, then used it to springboard into the air. Naruto winced as the clone's memories of being hit with a house came back to him. Sakura pondered. She scaled the rubble of the now destroyed building, and used it to follow Naruto into the sky. She had chased the boy many a time before. He was no Sasuke. He couldn't outright outrun her, or shift into another dimension. What he could do, however, was disappear once you lost sight of him for even a second. Do you mean the Anbu that have been chasing us? No, Naruto responded. Coincidentally, he used an Anbu that had tried to tackle him out of the air to change his trajectory. Pushing off his back, Naruto shot towards a roof that was now below him, and dashed in a different direction. I think we took out like half of the Anbu anyway. I'm talking about the overwhelming amounts of youth. Sakura, not one to be outdone, turned herself over in the air, and punched it. She punched the air. The force of the blow rocketed her towards her blonde teammate. Using the momentum from her punch, she pursued Naruto across the rooftops. Yeah, she said. I have noticed quite a lot of it. Why? You don't think? Naruto trailed off. Impossible, Sakura responded. Why would they be after us? If anything, they'd be cheering on our exuberant youthfulness. Is that better or worse? So much worse, Sakura responded, shuddering slightly. So for our sanity, let's hope that Lord Hawkeye sent him after us. There was a loud crash nearby. A building collapsed under the overwhelming amounts of youth that just barreled through it. Already seeing the green missile heading towards him, Naruto stopped, and allowed Sakura to catch up. The pink-haired girl, seeing the bigger problem for what it was, stopped in front of Naruto, and held up her hand. For good measure, she braced herself, as well. Sakura, who could effectively handle several tons of weight with no problem, was still nearly bowled over as she caught the foot of one Might Guy. Dynamic entry, the esteemed eccentric Jonin yelled. The mighty green beast of Konoha, Might Guy is here to apprehend you. All of my worst nightmares. They are coalescing right here. Right now in front of my very eyes. Naruto deadpanned. He then turned around, and caught the foot of yet another green missile. While I cannot match up to Guy-sensei's incredible might, I rockly will do my best. Oh god, Sakura gasped, her voice tense. It gets worse. Indeed, Guy screamed, his voice shattering both windows and eardrums. Though your youthfulness is indeed impressive, our youthful Lord Hawkeye has asked you to stop destroying our village. Guy then, somehow, disengaged while still being midair, and spun. His midair roundhouse kick impacted Sakura's raised arm, and came to a stop. So will you? Ignoring the fact that Guy had just kicked through a house to get to her, Sakura just braced her arm with her other one. Guy was disabled in the future, so Sakura had almost forgotten just how powerful he was. I'm going to have to decline, Sakura hummed. She had started to push back the man who was pushing her while still in the air. I have to mete out some well-deserved punishment. I see, Guy shouted. His face was, for once, grim. Then it appears that we have the same goal in mind. Guy then flipped once more. Somehow, he then kicked at Sakura's arm again. She wasn't prepared this time, so she was kicked away. Lee, can you handle young Naruto? Yes, sensei, the mini-clone screamed, and if I cannot, I will run 1,000. Naruto punched the boy with a Rasengan-powered punch. He knew that Lee would shrug it off. None of that. Sakura, Naruto screamed. I'll finish up with Lee, and follow up with you, okay? Right, Sakura yelled. She fell into her slug-style stance. Don't get beat up. Same, Naruto yelled, and just like that, the two duos split up. XXX Hinata and Sasuke hadn't even noticed that there were people pursuing them. Hinata had set up very many traps. How? Kurenai gasped. She was currently being held in the air by rope that bound her BDSM style. Below her was a pool of water that contained sharks. Being a Jinjutsu master, she noticed a small one that made her much more afraid of the situation than she actually was. But for some reason she couldn't dispel it. Across from her, Asuma was much worse off. How? He yelled. Kurenai couldn't describe his situation very well. It was that complicated. All she knew was that it involved honey, fire, and a lot of broken light bulbs. Too many broken light bulbs. Suspended in the air, Kurenai looked over the village she was in. Hinata and Sasuke were getting farther and farther away, with the latter dodging all of the former's traps, albeit by small margins. In their wake were many other ninja who were attempting to pursue them. They had tried, and failed, to escape the ambient traps. What do we do now? Kurenai thought. She was helpless as everyone else. She just hoped someone would come get her down. XXX this is, Tenten trailed off, becoming a lot bigger than we thought. Yes, Haguramo hummed. I didn't expect them to start working together. Sasuke and Hinata aren't working together, Tenten protested. Orochimaru pointed to the screen. If that isn't working together, then I don't know what is. On screen Sasuke desperately tried to outrun Hinata. He tripped a different trap every other step, but managed to avoid them all. Every so often, however, the two would look off to the side, towards ninja jumping towards them. They would then jump to angle the encroaching ninja into pre-made traps. Oh, Tenten said, her voice lowering. The prank queen of Konoha is truly fearsome. Some say she surpasses her husband. Kyuubi grunted. He looked bored. He scratched at the floor where the seal was. Some of it cracked from exposure to his chakra. Kyuubi smiled. This isn't good, Tenten pondered. She approached the screen, her face scrunched up, and her eyes intent on the screen. If they work together, there is no force in the world that can stop them. We must split them up, Kakashi hummed. They all stared at the screen. XXX2 green spandex wearing ninja collided with each other. An audible crack echoed through the area as the master and student hit. Effectively knocked out, the two fell to the ground as one. That was something, Sakura said. She was panting. Why are they so strong? Were they always this strong? Yeah, Naruto responded. He had an easier fight, but even still, he had much better endurance. Have you gotten it all out? Yes, Sakura gasped. Now what is going on here? It appears we were dragged to the past, a new voice said. Naruto shivered, and Sakura turned around with a smile. Hinata, you came back too. She then looked down. And you found Sasuke. Sasuke was tied up at the girl's feet. Yeah, you found Naruto. Naruto attempted to jump away. A very strong hand gripped his neck. Yes, Sakura answered. So what do we do now? The four looked around. They came to a conclusion rather quickly. Chaos, Hinata asked. Chaos, the other three chorused. Hinata leaned down and untied Sasuke. Rubbing at his wrists, he coughed. If you find Tenten, or Orochimaru, or Kakashi, kick them especially hard. They're the ones who brought you back here. Hinata and Sakura nodded. Then, as one, the four took off. XXX say they can't find us, right? Kyuubi literally exploded? The fox had finally scratched a dent in the seal holding him. His chakra radiated around the room, scaring the ones in there, and essentially being a beacon for anyone with even a little bit of talent as a sensor. Naruto and Sakura were excellent sensors. Hinata and Sasuke could literally see chakra. There. On their way, aren't they? You should be worried more about me, Kyuubi chanted. Now in his human form, he took on his own chakra cloak. Please do survive until they reach here. XXX Sarutobi sighed. He stood up from his seat and threw off his robes. I guess it's time to show these children who's boss. The god of shinobi took to the field once more. XXX it's a shame, Naruto sighed. He parried the sword coming for him, and unleashed a wave of sand from the kunai he used to do it. I wanted to go on a really long journey in order to visit each Jinchuriki, and absorb the chakra from them one by one, getting into ridiculous situations and eventually using it to tear ourselves from this time loop myself. Now it just feels like everything is coming to a head so quickly. Is that so, Naruto? Hinata asked. It is okay we can't see our children quicker. But still, Sasuke chimed in. He put several ninja around him in a jinjutsu simultaneously. It feels rushed, like the gods were quickly getting tired of us, and just wants to send us home. I don't think so, Sakura chimed in. Besides, we may be able to come back at any time. Sakura shrugged. We don't know what the future holds. I know what the future holds, an aged voice chimed from behind them. You guys, please, go back. The children turned around, different ninja being held in their hands. Excuse me? Naruto asked. You guys are causing too much trouble in the past, Sarutobi repeated. I need you to go back to the future. Wait, Naruto asked, his voice incredulous. You knew we were from the future this entire time. Of course I did. And I need you to go back. You're causing too much trouble. But, Lord Hawkage, no Sakura. The Hawkage cut her off. You're doing too much and I'm sending you home. Because, we're trouble, yes, Sasuke. Let's send you home now, okay? Elsewhere, an explosion went off. Kyuubi stepped out of a building holding 4 unconscious bodies. Stepping near the others, he dropped them on the ground. Then postured on them. I am the king of everything, he yelled. Sarutobi whacked him on the head with Enma, his monkey staff. Take him to the old Hawkage muttered. Are you ready? The 4 children nodded. Then goodbye. The Hawkage then went through several hand signs. Does anyone else find it ironic that we were first sent here by a crotchety old man with a staff, and now we're being sent back by one? Despite being trapped in a technique, Sarutobi still smacked Naruto over the head. You better be a better Hawkage than you are a ninja. Naruto chuckled. I suppose I am. The boy then grinned. I'll make you proud. Saratobi chuckled as well. I'm sure you will. The time travelers then faded away. Lord Hawkage, a nearby trapped ninja yelled. If they're gone, why does our universe even exist anymore? Fuck. XXX Naruto opened his eyes, hands roving over his body. He realized that he was in his old body again. Was it all a dream? Naruto asked himself. With a sudden intensity the boy reached over and pressed his intercom. Shizune! Naruto yelled. What was the last thing I told you? A Shizune responded on the other side of the intercom. That you got away with tricking, and I quote, the god of shinobi. Naruto then leaned back in his chair. It was good to be him. This feels like a cop-out, Naruto thought, then closed his eyes. XXX elsewhere, someone was having a very different experience. Why am I here? Niji shouted. He then dodged yet another Rasengan. I don't remember seeing you around, a mini Naruto called. He had a cowlick in front of his face. Hyuga imposters must be dealt with. You can't have my sister. Niji looked to said sister. She looked like she was far more dangerous than the brother protecting her. As soon as you beat Big Brother, we can't play Nijinizan. Niji shivered. He contemplated the virtues of just losing to his nephew.